So, here's the story. The world went totally nuts. Zombies started popping up, and everything fell apart. No joke, it was chaos everywhere. In the middle of this mess, one super dad just wanted to save his daughter, Dami. But dang, it was so hard even for a dude like him. It didn't matter how hard he tried, every time he and his daughter ended up as zombie snacks. That was rough. But hold on, here's where it gets sorta magical. Instead of finally chilling out in peace, this dad got called up by a goddess. Yup, for real. She told him he could have 99 lives. So, he could die and come back again and again just to keep trying to save his daughter. Talk about a wild deal. You'd think it would get easier, but nope. Each time he started over, he had to fight through all this zombie madness again. Only to lose. Over and over, bro. That must be crazy hard. Sometimes he would die first, and sometimes Dami would get bitten and turn into a zombie. Every time it happens, he will let her daughter bite him and then kill himself. But this dad never gave up. He kept going, thinking that maybe, just maybe, he could save her this time. What an absolute legend. Every regression he keeps getting stronger and smarter. But that's not enough. It's already the 99th turn, and again, like always, her daughter is not safe. She died because of his stupid decision in the last second. This time, he hugged her daughter and walked out. He could feel their destination was near. So after tons of failed tries, he finally made it to a real safe spot, a military shelter called Daejeon. That was on his 99th life. There will only be one last life. In Daejeon, there is a medical staff, a home for children to laugh and run. Yes, a truly place called home. Instead of quitting and using his next life right away, he just accepted it and tried to live like a normal dude for a while. But let's be real, he was still super sad inside. The thought of saving Dami just wouldn't go away. After years, he became this old man. He had already devised a perfect plan this time, and he was confident of winning. Now, he couldn't handle being apart from his daughter anymore. So, he ended his life to get that last final shot at saving her. This is his 100th regression. Now, he was back. Reset once again. He remembered everything from before, especially his biggest mess-ups. He thought to himself that this time, he wouldn't screw up like last time. With all that experience, he was sure things would be different. He then called his daughter, and finally able to see her again after 40 years. He hugged her, and promised, "This time, Daddy won't let you die." So guys, if you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Seriously guys, it helps me a ton. Alright, no more talking, let's diving straight into the story. After that, he opened the front gate, ready to finally start the journey to Daejeon with her. But man, fate had other plans. In every try before, his street was empty. But this time, not even close. Straight up zombie party out there. The undead were everywhere, blocking the street, rushing in like it was a Black Friday toilet paper deal. A variable. He already rehearsed the plan 1,000 times over 40 years, but a single variable destroys it in 1 second. Dude froze in place. After all those lives, he'd never seen this before. The zombies moved fast, and his inner thoughts didn't even get to finish. His daughter shouted and that snapped him back. Yet he shoved her back inside the house and slammed the door shut, letting himself get swarmed so his kid could have at least a chance. Dami cried, begging for him to open up, but this boss dad decided to take that L all by himself. Even as the zombies ripped into him. Yeah, it sounds gross. He wasn't broken at all. After dying so many times already, this was just another Tuesday for him. As he was going down, he remembered all the good times with his daughter, when she was just a tiny kid. He loved her more than anything in the world, then and now. Don't cry, baby, Daddy will always protect you. But fuck, why did he keep failing? Is it meaningless to hope to live with his daughter? No, dying 1,000 times won't ever change his feelings. He wants to protect his daughter. That spark made him go full beast mode. He refused to go out like some chump. Suddenly, the dude went superhuman. Some next-level strength powered up inside him. This dude suddenly became super ripped like Sung Jin Woo. He grabbed like a dozen zombies and threw them away like trash. For real, 1 second he was a regular dad, and the next, he was like a superhero. One zombie tried something, but that was a dumb move. The dad destroyed the horde, tearing through them like they were made of paper. When a zombie bit him, he bit back. Even harder! He punched through chests and slammed zombies into the ground, so hard it was like watching a meteor crash. The other zombies straight up looked scared. You know when a dad gets that look in his eyes? These undead goons realized they had picked the wrong house. Meanwhile, Dami was calming down inside the house. After a while, the gate creaked open. Sunlight came in. and she saw her dad standing tall, looking like he just bench-pressed the world. He was alive, crazy strong, and you could just feel the power rolling off this guy. Any single mom in the city would faint just seeing him like that. He was back, ready to be the hero she needed. He smiled. "Don't worry, Dammy. Even if Daddy is not a human anymore, Daddy will protect you until the end. Are you okay, my daughter?" A week into this apocalypse mess, the story zoomed over to Seoul, the capital. More exactly, to Mapo district, where there was this store called A-Mart. Why talk about a grocery store? Because it turned into a key spot. A group of soldiers was blocking the entrance, freaking out about how two survivors just strolled up, even though the whole area was zombie central. Out of the shadows came Min-suk, our goat father, and his daughter. The egghead soldier started losing his mind, looking like his head was about to blow up. All the soldiers had their guns pointed right at this dude. The boss asked what was going on with Min-suk's face. Turns out, he just thought Min-suk must be some famous star because of his cool sunglasses. Kind of funny, actually. Then, a new big shot entered. Captain Cha Hyeri, also called the Black Widow. Yeah, maybe after Avengers she started leading here. She didn't trust Min-suk or Dami at all and was super clear. This place was off limits for them, so they better get going. She even walked up super close just to say it to his face. Total savage moment. But Min-suk started looking worried because his daughter wasn't doing well at all. She had bad asthma after a whole week of running. He basically begged the captain to let his daughter stay safe, saying he didn't even care about his own life. So, our man Min-suk just went and pulled off the Oscar-worthy dad performance of a lifetime. He pleaded for his daughter like a pro, putting all his heart into it. Captain Hyeri should have been ice cold, but for a moment, she was totally confused. Then, the confusion disappeared and she got super angry, like, who does he think he is, tricking her emotions? The egghead soldier from earlier even thought this was one dumb move, since their captain was known for not caring at all about people's sob stories. This lady was the boss for a reason. But, here's the comedy. The egghead turned around and almost dropped his jaw. He caught his captain with a rare, mushy look on her face. Captain Hyeri was clearly fighting her feelings after hearing Min-suk's story. "Bro!" she tried, but her heart gave way. She let both Min-suk and Dami in, saying they needed more helping hands around here. Come on, everyone knew that wasn't the real reason. She was just surprisingly soft inside. Let's really break it down, though. Min-suk was next-level sneaky. In his old runs, he already figured out that Captain Hyeri was a retired soldier and the real backbone behind gathering and protecting all these survivors. On the outside, she was colder than a freezer and tougher than boot camp. But her weak spot? Hearing about parents trying to save their kids, that's what let Min-suk pull off his trick. He knew exactly what to say and didn't hesitate to bait her this way. Meanwhile, Dami was totally not happy about what her dad just did. She hated that her dad acted like he would leave her behind. But she stuck with the act and kept pretending to cough like she was about to kick the bucket. The soldiers found this kind of annoying, but only Min-suk understood the truth. He knew Dami was barely holding it together. Her mind was in worse shape than any of the past tries. All he wanted now was to keep her safe. The real stress, though? Min-suk caught on to two new wildcards and variables in this timeline. First, things were different. Something happened a week ago that changed everything. Dami almost had a mental breakdown when he almost got killed by the zombies. Second, after getting bitten by a zombie earlier, he actually got weird superpowers. Now, he even wondered if he was still fully human anymore. Moving into survival mode, the mart was looking like the jackpot. There were tons of supplies, strong guards everywhere, and it was the best hope around in the beginning of this zombie doomsday. But something felt off. Min-suk noticed a collapsed building nearby. That was new. Never happened in all his earlier lives. A soldier got suspicious and joked that Min-suk acted like he could predict the future or something. Anyway, the soldier explained what went down. 3 days ago, zombies launched a sudden attack. Captain Hyeri, being one badass leader, distracted the horde all by herself. She ran into the doomed building and set off explosives. Kaboom! The whole thing came crashing down, crushing all the zombies inside. The place ended up as a zombie graveyard, with bits and rubble everywhere. Even if a few zombies survived, there was no way out for them. It sounded safe enough, right? But then, as Min-suk nervously looked around, the egghead soldier started teasing him, thinking he was just being dramatic. Well, talk about bad timing. Just as the soldier laughed, a gigantic zombie monster showed up behind him. This thing was massive, easily big enough to squash someone like a bug. The egghead instantly went from clowning to panicking. Before anyone could act, the zombie delivered a huge punch, flattening the dude in one shot. Yikes! Talk about instant karma. The madness didn't stop there. The monster zombie went after Captain Hyeri too. She dodged with some slick moves, barely missing being wiped out. The rest of her squad just stared, totally shocked and scared, with no idea what was going on. Captain Hyeri snapped out of it and ordered her crew to fire everything they had at the monster. So, they blasted the thing with guns like there was no tomorrow. But the big ugly zombie here just shrugged off the bullets and kept marching forward. It roared so loud that everyone's ears were probably ringing. And then it wrecked everything. The monster swung its huge arms, taking out 3 soldiers in one wild hit. One poor guy just froze, scared for his life, and the zombie smashed him with both giant arms. It was brutal. Luckily, Captain Hyeri pulled a major clutch move. She tossed her backpack to distract the monster and drag the soldier to safety. She reminded him, loudly, to stay focused if he wanted to make it out alive. But even as she was saving lives, Captain Hyeri realized this was a whole new kind of threat. These were not the regular brain eaters she was used to. Her #1 mission now was getting everyone into the mart, the last real fortress left. She called for everyone to retreat inside while Minsuk kept trying to talk. Captain Hyeri was having none of that. She told him to quit talking and just run. Dammy was struggling to keep up. So Minsuk's dad mode kicked in hard. He turned around to face the big zombie meat pile himself. All fired up, he threw a massive punch, determined to protect his daughter at all costs. Meanwhile, Captain Hyeri had a plan herself. She wanted to lure the monster to a special barricade built outside the mart, a total tank of a wall that nothing, not even a super zombie, should get through. If she could pull this off, they might have time to find and hit the creature's weak spot. But then, her heart sank. She saw other survivors waiting on the first floor, right where things could go worst. She wonders how the fuck the civilians there where they should be evacuated already. Oof. Gotta give her credit though. She was brave, smart, and doing her best to take control in one insane situation. She dropped an F-bomb in her own head and made a snap decision. She wasn't about to let this monster mess up her people, so she decided she'd lure it away herself. That's pure main character energy right there. But when Captain Hyeri looked around for backup, she noticed something weird. Dami's dad, Minsuk, had just vanished into thin air. This seriously ticked her off, because she thought all her work to keep Dami safe had just ended in abandonment by her own father. She was not happy about this, bro. But then Dami pointed somewhere else, hinting that her dad was over there. Captain Hyeri, pretty annoyed but still curious, turned her head to see what was up. What she found nearly broke her brain. There was Minsuk, in the middle of just straight up destroying the huge zombie. He was bashing its head in with his fists, beating the absolute crap out of it. Over and over he smashed that zombie until it looked like a plate of mashed potatoes. Even the grizzled old soldiers had nothing to say. The fight was so brutal that everyone else had to look away. It was that nasty. Finally, after one last punch, Minsuk finished off the beast. He stood there, just chilling and catching his breath, acting like nothing wild had just happened. Dude's on a whole new level. Captain Hyeri and all the soldiers were left staring at him, trying to figure out what kind of monster, even in human skin, could do that. They were full-on suspicious now. But Minsuk didn't care at all about the shocked crowd. He went straight to Dami and apologized for breaking his promise, saying that her safety meant more to him than protecting his big secret. That was cute, but the room was straight up tense. Now, Captain Hyeri was seriously on edge. She raised her gun and aimed it right at Minsuk, itching for answers. She asked who the fuck he truly is. How can a fucking human kill that big-ass zombie? Yet this dude looked ripped enough to scare everyone with just his stare. He started to introduce himself calmly, even going so far as to take off his sunglasses, which made his daughter super worried. Dami was freaking out, scared that if he revealed too much, the soldiers would just take him out. The air got cold as Minsuk said that he was a zombie, then quickly added expert in front of it. Everyone just froze. Zombie expert? What the crap is a zombie expert anyway? Nobody had a clue what he was talking about, and even Captain Hyeri was left speechless for a second. But here comes the magic. Minsuk turned on his gaslighter mode, going full pro. He started rambling about how, since the apocalypse began, he'd been studying zombies, checking out their weaknesses, and figuring out all the ways to defeat them. That's why he managed to crush the super zombie earlier, and he swore up and down he just wanted to help out. For a second, Captain Hyeri cracked a smile, like she was buying his wild story. But then, bam, she flipped. With lightning speed, she pulled a knife and pressed it to his throat. She clearly didn't believe a word of his story. As Dami tried to jump in and help her dad, Captain Hyeri just told her to quit it. She said it was obvious that no normal guy could punch a zombie to death like that, especially one that bullets couldn't even hurt. Then she went nose to nose with Minsuk, pointing out that his eyes now looked totally freaky, glowing dark red like a zombie's. She asked one last time, "Is Minsuk a real human or what?" Bro, you could say she was about 1 inch away from turning this interrogation into full-on drama mode. Our daddy kept standing there with a knife at his throat. But instead of freaking out, he explained things very calmly. He told her that the bullets they fired before actually did hurt the giant zombie a lot. The captain looked super confused, so Minsuk explained further. He said that the zombie was already almost done for because of the gunfire. All he did was finish the job with one last move. He even threw in some monster trivia, saying these things were called Eater-class zombies. These zombies got their beefy look by fusing together, like some knockoff Dragon Ball Z combo move. The result? Super tough zombies that were hard as rocks. But every boss has a weak spot, right? For these Eater zombies, it was their neck. Minsuk made it clear that he wasn't lying. It just took hitting the right spot. Sure, a normal punch wouldn't do squat, but his did. As for his red eyes, he claimed they were just from a genetic thing. Low melanin, nothing more. That's why he always rocked the sunglasses, he said, because people stare at him just like Captain Hyeri was doing. Bro, our papa is prepared and smart as hell. With all that explained, Minsuk looked at Captain Hyeri and flipped the script, asking if she really still thought he was a zombie. She looked pretty nervous and still a bit skeptical, but she was also thinking hard. Sure, he was suspicious, but if he was truly a zombie, he probably wouldn't have worked so hard to save his daughter. That finally tipped things in his favor. Captain Hyeri dropped her guard, gave them a pass, and let him and Dami stay in the mall. But don't get it twisted. She wasn't letting him off the hook. She told him point blank that she was going to have eyes on him 24/7. After that, reality hit her all at once. She had just lost some of her own men, and the guilt hit her hard. 2 soldiers ran up to check if she was okay, but instead of hugs or pep talks, she straight up wrecked one guy's knee. The dude went down instantly. That wasn't just for show. She was mad because these soldiers ignored her orders. Instead of getting civilians to safety below ground, they panicked and nearly got everyone killed. Captain Hyeri made it super clear with the scariest glare that if they messed up again, they'd have her to answer to. She left the group looking frustrated, but the guy she kicked was clearly holding a grudge. Something tells me that's going to matter later. This kind of bitch is always doing shit in the worst case possible. Switching back inside the mart, peace finally settled. For now. Survivors rested, including Minsuk and Dami. Dami felt real relief that her dad's big secret didn't get exposed. When he started spouting off excuses, she had almost panicked for real. She couldn't believe her papa could lie so smoothly and act like nothing was up. Minsuk explained that Captain Hyeri is hard to fool, so he had to use everything he knew. The way he talked about her made Dami suspicious. She guessed maybe her papa knew Hyeri from before. Yet Minsuk didn't answer directly, but memories flooded in anyway. Turns out, after so many restarts, he actually got close with Captain Hyeri in some timelines. That's why he understood her better than anyone. But he kept that secret for himself. Dami was even more surprised when Minsuk used the word bluff. She thought that was just a slang term only younger kids understood. But Minsuk said, with a little smile, that Dami had taught him everything. After all, living 100 lives together means you pick up some things, especially from your kid. Dami didn't really remember any of this, but she still felt proud. Minsuk decided it was time to get her some food, and while he was away, Dami tried to remember the old days, but the memories wouldn't come back. It only made her look more adorable to her dad. Here's the kicker. After getting his new powers, Dami made Minsuk promise to always keep it a secret. She was smart. She knew if people learned too much, they'd be scared, and someone might try to hurt him to protect themselves. So, they worked together to keep up the lie. Minsuk wandered through the mart, thinking deeply. He realized that if anyone found out who or what he really was, the survivors would panic instantly. So, keeping this secret is the only way for now. When he finally brought food back to Dami, she was already knocked out and sleeping hard. He tucked her in with a blanket, making sure his daughter was cozy and safe. But even while things seemed calm, the danger was bigger than ever. Minsuk thought over everything. Zombies were moving faster, coming in bigger waves, and now there were weird mutations everywhere, even though the outbreak was only a week old. Nothing was acting like in the past, and it made him super stressed. Variables everywhere, and no way to predict them. The big question? Why were the zombies changing at this speed? Minsuk's best guess was that it was actually his own fault. His actions were changing the universe, and now the zombies were adjusting, maybe even targeting him on purpose. The scene zoomed out to the city and showed hundreds of mutated zombies marching forward, all heading right for the mart. Minsuk's senses screamed at him. He just knew they were coming. Maybe they were afraid of him, or maybe he was just messing up their evil plans. One thing was 100% true, though. The monsters saw him as their #1 enemy, the one guy who could wreck everything for them. And now, both sides were getting ready for another round. So, what's our best dad gonna do? Of course, he decided that if hundreds of zombies wanted a piece of him, he'd go out and meet them himself. A true Giga Chad move, if you ask me. He left the city behind and marched out with nothing but a ladder. Yep, not a gun, not a sword, a freaking ladder. That's how you flex on zombie bastard. Minsuk stood alone in the middle of nowhere. The zombies showed up, looking hungry. He just grinned like, thanks dudes. Now he didn't have to hunt them down one by one. And bro, you know he couldn't just fight like a normal guy. He broke the ladder in half, making it his new weapon. Forget guns, this is next level survival. His plan? Get this messy horde cleaned up before his daughter even woke up, so he could make her a nice breakfast. Seriously, super dad goals. So, the zombies rushed at him, not just regular biters but all kinds of freaky mutations. Ugly monsters mashed together, drooling and chomping. Minsuk was ready. He dashed into the crowd, smashing, swinging, and fighting so fast that no zombie could even react. Dude was taking zombies apart, bashing skulls in, and kicking even the Eater-class zombies into next week's episode. One hit from him, and those beefy monsters became zombie soup. It didn't stop there. When a pack of mutants tried to blast him with some kind of zombie superpower, Minsuk just leaped higher than a basketball star and dropped down like a thunderstrike, wiping them all out in one shockwave. It was destruction on another level, bro. Then he started slicing and dicing like a chef at a barbecue. A zombie somehow eats his hand, but this super dad suddenly grows his hand back. Ultra speed regeneration unlocked. The fight just kept on going. Minutes passed. Then, a 6-armed, butt-ugly zombie came charging in, but Minsuk stomped its face so hard it made me disgusted. He chopped off its head, aura blazing. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Dami was just waking up from a deep sleep, not even knowing her dad had just bodied a whole zombie army. She came out, stretched, and saw her father waiting with breakfast, like nothing wild had happened. The breakfast even had a little heart on it, just for her. She beamed, super happy, and dug in. Let's switch over to the captain. Her soldiers reported hearing crazy loud noises in the middle of the night. So, what did they find at the scene? Not a zombie in sight. Every last one was reduced to mush and dust. Captain Hyeri slammed her table, freaking out about how on earth this happened near their base. One soldier guessed that maybe the zombies got into a fight with each other, but even that sounded insane. In just 4 hours, the horde was totally wiped off the map. Of course, the captain immediately realized this was their chance. She told her men to gather everyone. They might finally be able to leave the mart. Meanwhile, the survivors poked their heads out and were shocked by what they saw. The day was bright and calm, but the street was covered in blood. Only, there weren't any zombies anywhere. People started celebrating, thinking maybe, just maybe, this nightmare was finally over. One survivor even pointed out how quiet everything was. No groaning, no stomping, peace for once. Everybody started smiling, finally feeling something like relief. Dami was pretty confused too, telling her dad that the zombies really seemed to be gone. She had absolutely no clue that her own father just dropped a citywide smackdown on those creeps the night before. Bro, she was eating breakfast after her dad cleaned up the entire town. But her zombie-slaying dad wasn't done yet. Minsuk put a helmet on her head and told her very seriously that no matter what, she must never take it off. His tone said he knew something bad could happen at any time. Dami got a little suspicious, asking what he really meant, but there was no time for more questions. Suddenly, Captain Hyeri came marching in with her squad and a megaphone. She announced to everyone that the zombies in the area were all gone. Totally for real this time. Survivors just lost it, cheering and celebrating, thinking this was the happiest day ever. But Captain Hyeri had another announcement that none of them wanted to hear. Everyone was leaving the area right now. That was a plot twist no one expected. Survivors freaked out, saying there was finally no danger and no reason to pack up and run away. In response, Captain Hyeri gave them the cold, hard truth. 3 days ago, they lost radio contact with the 2nd Mechanized Infantry Brigade. No ordinary group, but a top-tier squad with tanks, armored trucks, and enough muscle to survive anything. She said the brigade survived crazy stuff in another region and had the strength to protect all the survivors. Meant as a bit of hope, her words actually made the crowd panic. Folks didn't want to leave based on information from a radio that might not even be true. Everybody argued and shouted while Captain Hyeri tried to calm them down, promising that she knew a solid, trustworthy soldier from that brigade, someone with the code name Blue Hawk. Bro, this Blue Hawk guy's back muscles looked powerful enough to have their own set of abs. We need to fucking respect this dude. So, Captain Hyeri had a plan, and she really trusted her old friend Blue Hawk with her life. But the rest of the survivors? Dude, they were having none of it. These people didn't know Blue Hawk, or care about some radio story. They just saw peace outside, and wanted to chill, not risk their necks on a wild road trip. The crowd got super rowdy, voices everywhere, and Captain Hyeri was struggling to keep her anger under control. She tried her best to make them understand. If the zombies came back for round 2, they'd be toast if they stuck around. But nobody wanted to hear logic. The survivors thought the zombies wouldn't return, so staying put seemed like the safe bet. Then, out of nowhere, this random survivor dude started yelling how Captain Hyeri was making a bad call just because she was a woman. Bro, that was one of the dumbest lines from a manhwa ever. Total Andrew Tate energy, and it somehow influenced half the crowd to start blaming her for everything. Yikes. At that moment, Minsuk, aka Papa Gigachad, aka the zombie expert, decided he was done listening. He stepped forward and dropped a cold, scary truth bomb on everyone. He warned that the zombies would definitely come back for them, and staying here would just make them a free meal for the next horde. The loudmouth tried to clap back, but Minsuk put him in his place with just a look, describing in freaky detail what would happen. Bro, this guy was so shook he didn't know what to say, and even his own daughter was side-eyeing him like, dude, what got into you? But Minsuk didn't stop. He explained straight up. Even leaving was risky, and there were no promises about surviving the journey. Sure, that freaked people out because they only wanted guarantees. So, he flipped their logic against them with a killer question. He asked what would happen if they stopped listening to sensible orders from the soldiers. Everyone went quiet and started arguing with each other. Suddenly, some smarter folks in the crowd realized Minsuk was right. They pointed out that the only reason they survived this long was because of Captain Hyeri and her crew. One glasses-wearing survivor even said it loud and clear. They owed everything to Captain Hyeri's leadership. That turned everything around. Now, the crowd cheered Captain Hyeri on and chanted for her to take the lead. Even she was stunned for a moment. She had almost lost it with their whining. But in one stroke, the zombie expert made the whole group trust her again. She was both amazed and a little curious about Minsuk. And you could tell from her face, she was starting to wonder what kind of guy this man is. Minsuk waved off any praise. He told Captain Hyeri he didn't even want to thank you and could tell she was thinking it anyway, like he was reading her mind. The truth is, after over 100 lifetimes, our boy became a master at talking his way out of crazy situations. Negotiation was just another weapon for him. He then reassured Captain Hyeri that he only did all this for his daughter's safety. Minsuk reached out, told Captain Hyeri he believed in her leadership, and said she was the one who'd guide them out. Captain Hyeri was surprised by his trust in her, but she threw all doubts aside and announced the start of Operation Escape. With a loud voice, she declared herself as captain, promising nobody would get left behind on her watch. Time to move! In the next scene, everyone piled into buses and trucks, rolling out down bloody roads. Damie looked grumpy, probably because she was still wearing that giant helmet or she didn't get to sit next to her dad. Captain Hyeri led the group from up front, staying sharp and dodging danger. Finally, they crossed the Han River, a total milestone since the world went full zombie mode. Captain Hyeri didn't even break a sweat. She just told her people to keep their heads in the game because there were probably more problems ahead. That's when trouble showed up. Soldiers spotted a bunch of zombies up ahead. These nasties were so desperate to get close, they were literally climbing over each other like it was some kind of zombie pyramid scheme. Captain Hyeri didn't waste even 1 second. She ordered all civilians in Team C to the right lane, while she and her soldiers handled the left. Let's pause for a sec and talk about zombie biology. These freaks, their hearing is super sharp, way better than their sight. Captain Hyeri put that knowledge to work. She started tossing metal cans at the zombies, making tons of noise. The zombies got triggered by all that sound, screaming and losing their minds as their senses went wild. The point wasn't to make them run away, but to get them focused on her vehicle. It worked. The zombies locked on and chased her side of the group. She told her drivers to put the pedal down and stay just ahead. Zombie marathon runners were coming, fast. Seriously, these monstrosities were sprinting so hard, it looked like they were training for the Apocalypse Olympics. Things were getting tense because now they had to keep going just a little bit faster, or the zombie pack would catch them. Captain Hyeri looked at the massive zombie horde and immediately made the call. Everyone had to make for the Songsan Bridge. This bridge used to be normal, but now it was all collapsed and broken. That's when she demonstrated just how smart she was about all things related to fighting zombies. Everybody knows zombies only have one brain cell, and all they care about is chasing people, no matter what. The captain had a plan for that. She told her team to pull a sharp 180 inches their vehicle right before reaching the broken bridge. That wild spin made the zombies' brains totally short-circuit since they were running at max speed. Instead of catching the survivors, the whole horde crashed into each other and a bunch of them just kept tumbling around. Now, it was time to use the zombies' other big weakness. Zombies' backsides are their soft spot. Seriously, if you want to take out a zombie quick, hit them from behind. This is where Papa Minsuk leveled up his game. He rolled up in a road roller, which honestly is the king of the construction yard. He started pancaking zombies left and right. I'm talking full-on pizza mode. Zombies getting flattened and crushed into mush. Some zombies were actually dumb enough to walk straight into the machine. Captain Hyeri and her squad couldn't even talk. They just stood there shocked watching the most insane zombie extermination ever. Thanks to the machine's huge size and Minsuk's mad driving skills, he swept every last zombie off the bridge and sent them flying into the ocean below. It was like a video game achievement, bro, and the path for the survivors was finally clear. Let's cut quickly to Dami and the other survivors. Dami seemed a little down, and we got a sneak peek of why. She had actually argued hard with her dad before they left the mart. She really hated the idea of Minsuk taking any risks that might get his secret out. All she wanted was to stay by his side, safe and sound. But now, after all that crushing mayhem, she just watched her dad roll back into camp with a giant construction machine and a smile. He kept his word and came back in one piece. And yes, bro, the One Piece is real. Even when he lost a limb, he could grow it back in 1 second like a fucking ogre. Back in the action, Captain Hyeri jumped out of her truck and yelled to keep civilians away as she spotted even more raging zombies. But she didn't have to worry. Minsuk and his road roller were on cruise control, flattening every monster in sight and clearing the path again. Thanks to this wild move, everyone finally made it through. The survivors breathed a real sigh of relief as they safely arrived at the base of the 2nd Brigade. Now, about this brigade, these guys were built different. In almost every one of Minsuk's past lifetimes, this unit lasted the longest out of every group he saw. Hitting the 2nd Brigade base was the big checkpoint on the way to the ultimate goal. Daejeon, the true safe spot. Getting here in just 8 days was insane. But Minsuk wasn't about to let success go to his head. He reminded himself of what happened before. If he started slacking or getting cocky, Dami could die, and he'd be powerless to help. He told himself to stick to the roadmap, do everything right, and change as little as possible. A slight change could really destroy his plan to save his daughter. But for now, it was celebration time. People cheered for Minsuk's superhero moves with the road roller, and even the soldiers were impressed. Nobody knew how to use the machine except for him, so they guessed he used to be a construction worker. Minsuk cut them off. He never had that job. He just learned out of pure apocalypse survival vibes. In short, every survivor got through without a single loss, and Captain Hyeri was actually grateful for once. She even thanked Minsuk. But bro, Minsuk was having fun with her. He wanted more praise. And the captain just hit him with a classic, "Shut up." Their little moment got cut off when Sergeant Lee In-hee of the 2nd Infantry Brigade showed up. He saluted Captain Hyeri, showing he'd been looking forward to her arrival. Captain Hyeri was caught off guard to find herself already known here. Sergeant Lee explained that Colonel Cha had warned them she would come, but also that they'd need to watch out for a stubborn female officer. The squad all joked and laughed. Captain Hyeri was not amused and hit them with her death glare, then asked where Colonel Cha was. The sergeant said the colonel went off to the rear gate because of a zombie threat, but he was being a little too casual and nervous with his answer, sneaking out a tiny smile. Something weird was definitely up. Now here's what really happened. Colonel Cha didn't even bother taking the squad with him to fight off the zombies. Nope. This dude went all by himself because, apparently, he's the living definition of badass. From a watchtower, the soldiers counted down on his new record, hyping up how he cleared out all the zombies in just 35 minutes. This colonel didn't even use guns, he preferred axes, saying that's the true zombie kryptonite. If anything, he seemed to just do it for fun. He found a thrill in getting up close and personal, enjoying how zombie heads rolled after every swing. Bruh, this guy is also a maniac. So, the truth is, this Colonel Dong-ho is the Blue Hawk, and he is a total MVP, the boss of the 2nd Infantry Brigade. But not even his own men know what to do with his wild methods. The guy prefers melee weapons, especially his trusty axe, and pretty much laughs at regular guns. The soldiers tried telling him to chill out and maybe use something safer. They even joked that if Colonel Dong-ho ever became a zombie, there'd be no saving the world. He would basically become Saitama in the zombie world. The colonel just laughed it off, saying there was no way some brainless zombies would ever take him down. The truth? This Blue Hawk guy is a different breed. He knows every single zombie move and even roasts his own men as dead weight, so he never lets them join his solo fights. The soldiers were a little salty, but deep down they knew he wasn't exactly wrong. But as tough as he was, the guy still felt the ache in his bones. Age is undefeated, dude, and was low-key bored because no zombie was even close to his level. That is, until today. Suddenly, one of those Eater-class zombies, the big fusion freaks, got back up with a nasty smile. But before the colonel could do anything, Minsuk rolled up out of nowhere on his road roller and crushed the zombie into tomato sauce. Total one-shot KO. All the troops were stunned speechless. But the colonel? His danger sense went into overload. He could feel how powerful Minsuk really was. Every step Minsuk took gave off heavy death vibes. Forget the zombies. This road roller warrior was the scariest thing he'd ever seen. But things got weirder. Minsuk casually introduced himself, mentioning that he came with Captain Hyeri and was just there to help. But the colonel felt something so off that he lost all chill and came at Minsuk with his full axe power. Seriously, this was a home run swing, straight for Minsuk's head. Everyone watching was panicking, because who the hell swings axes at friendly strangers? But plot twist! Minsuk caught the axe one-handed, just snatched it out of the air like it was a paper airplane. The colonel freaked out and shouted for Code Red. In his eyes, the man in front of him was a monster, absolutely not human. Even Minsuk understood that there was no way to trick this guy with stories or excuses. So he went serious, calling the colonel by name and then, in the most jaw-dropping move, punched the axe so hard it shattered. Minsuk then said he wanted to stay, but he knew words weren't enough. He realized the only way to win this guy over was through an honest duel, the colonel's favorite thing ever. The colonel's eyes basically lit up. He smiled, because this was the challenge he'd been craving forever. Without another word, he dropped his gear to the ground, ready for a good old-fashioned brawl. He couldn't believe someone actually knew he loved fighting so much. Minsuk got into his stance, which was a perfect, "let's go right now," and the Blue Hawk didn't waste a second, launching at Minsuk like a missile. Meanwhile, the alarm had gone code red. Soldiers scrambled all over the base, and Captain Hyeri demanded to know what the heck was happening, but her own people just wanted to follow orders and didn't fill her in yet. Suddenly, a guy by the name of Captain Quack showed up all serious and put a gun to her face. "Yeah, not cool, dude. How dare he aim at our captain? We need to kick this dude's ass." Captain Quack thought she was involved with this monster attacking their leader, and by association, she might be dangerous too. Only after Minsuk's name was revealed did it start to make sense to Captain Hyeri. But nobody at the base actually knew who he really was, except maybe the newcomers and, of course, poor Dami, who was absolutely freaking out for her dad. Back at the battle, things got anime-level epic. Minsuk went Saitama mode, one single punch wrecked an entire wall, making the colonel dodge in terror. Nobody could deny it now. Minsuk was not playing around. The colonel kicked at him, but Minsuk blocked like it was nothing. The next instant, Minsuk disappeared. He literally blitzed behind the colonel in a movement so quick, it looked like he teleported. He was about to deliver a crushing punch, but the Blue Hawk proved he was no slouch. He dodged, even at the last second, and threw a mean punch right back in Minsuk's face. That shot landed, proving the colonel could still go toe-to-toe with something borderline superhuman. Even after realizing his opponent was part zombie or something, the Blue Hawk was still enjoying every second, and Minsuk was just as locked in. So now, the two biggest monsters on the field, a zombie-slaying superdad and the ultimate melee colonel, were finally going head-to-head. After that insane fight, both Minsuk and Colonel Dongho were catching their breath. The Blue Hawk was not letting it go, though. He grabbed Minsuk by the collar and accused him of totally holding back during the fight. The colonel said that was the only reason why he could even dodge that last punch, otherwise he'd be in the hospital or, well, in the afterlife. Well, our superdad nodded and agreed. This Chad didn't deny it. He said he really was holding back, because if he let loose for real, the colonel would probably end up dead. And this wasn't some empty street threat from a weakling, this was coming from a dude who could literally punch his way through stone walls. The colonel took it hard, but the truth was crystal clear. The gap between their strength was insane, and he knew it. Still, the colonel wanted to know why. What was Minsuk's real motive? Minsuk laid it out. He just wanted protection. Yup. After that god-level flex in the ring, all he wanted was to be sheltered. The colonel burst out laughing. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world. that the strongest guy he'd ever met was coming to him begging for safety. But then Min-suk revealed the serious reason. He was only worried about his daughter, Dami. The only thing on his mind was keeping her safe, surrounded by good people like Captain Hyeri. Min-suk said he didn't care about himself, and then, right there, he got down on his knees, ready to throw away his pride if it meant saving his daughter. He told the colonel he'd follow any order, as long as Dami was protected. Now that, my friend, is what you call real dad energy. That night, the scene shifted to the brigade's shelter for survivors. The normal people there were starting to freak out. Once someone dropped the monster rumor about Min-suk, everyone got tense. They whispered about his wild strength and scary red eyes, wondering if he was a zombie undercover ready to bite. Meanwhile, our boy was actually locked up in chains like a final boss. Even after everything he'd done, he remembered the Blue Hawk's promise. Everyone was allowed to stay here, and he would keep his word. But the colonel said straight up that Min-suk was just too dangerous to walk around freely. At least for now, Min-suk actually agreed. He wanted to show them all he could be trusted, even if it meant being detained for a bit. His idea was to win them over with patience, not power. But he wasn't as alone as he thought. Dami, the world's most loyal daughter, came sneaking by to visit. She talked to him through the little visitor window, cheering him up. For Min-suk, this alone made everything worth it. Dami even told him the shelter wasn't all that great, way too stuffy and crowded. He apologized, saying he was sorry for breaking yet another promise. He was worried she might be super mad at him or disappointed after everything, but Dami surprised him. She banged on the glass and reminded him, if her zombie-busting dad hadn't done what he did, none of these people would even be here. Instead of shame, she gave him a big, sunny smile. She wanted him to be proud of saving everyone, even if the others were too scared to get it. Real talk, bro, it's kinda sad. This dude gives it everything for his girl, but the world still side-eyes him so hard. But to Dami, he was still the best. For real, both of them is the best dad and daughter in all the manhwa history. Dami had to run back fast for roll call, saying goodbye to her dad with another burst of energy. Min-suk felt happy, even chained up. Just seeing her well made his day. But as soon as Dami was out of sight, she started crying. She'd tried so hard to keep her cool and act tough, but you could tell it really hurt her to be apart. Min-suk was the same way, trying to stay strong, but feeling the pain of distance. Underneath the smiles, both were hurting more than they showed. Then, hope arrived. The sergeant showed up at Min-suk's cell, saying the colonel wanted to see him. In the next scene, the Blue Hawk pointed to a spot on the map, a station they thought survivors might be at. They'd just gotten a signal from there. But there was something weird too. A strange frequency they couldn't understand. They had to move fast and keep their team tight. So the colonel pulled together his special elite squad, just 2 people, himself and Min-suk. Looks like it's time for this 2-man dream team to run the world's wildest zombie check again. In other words, these 2 are about to bring the thunder like no one's ever seen. Zombies? They don't stand a chance. Anyway, the colonel wanted one last test just to see what kind of man Min-suk really was. He told him, basically, that he wanted to find out if Min-suk's love for his daughter was real, and if he was willing to do everything for her sake. Min-suk didn't need to hear anymore. He just cracked his chains open like he was Superman, showing that he could leave any time, but he chose not to, all for Dami's safety. He even asked the colonel, straight-faced. When they were heading out, the Blue Hawk just grinned, excited for the challenge, and said it was time to roll. The way these 2 were radiating pure power and aura farming, I swear, the zombies were done for. So, the Goopaball Station rescue mission began. The story jumped to underneath the collapsed station. Here, a bunch of survivors were hiding, including a mother and her baby, Diane. Diane was crying, and honestly that's a nightmare, because one loud baby could attract all the hungry zombies. Some guy nearby got annoyed and started complaining. Thankfully, an old lady stood up for the mom and told the guy off. Her support made the mother feel better for just a second. But then Diane spotted something. She started pointing up, yelling, "Baba!" And the mom looked where she was pointing, only to freeze. There, staring out from the shadows above, was a face made for a horror movie. This creepy zombie even pulled a huge jump scare, Ryuk from Death Note style. Yup, things just got heavy. The story switched back to the 2-man rescue squad outside. The streets were crawling with zombies, wailing, grunting, faces messed up, missing pieces. Suddenly, one of these nightmares got blasted by a flash of light and then tossed into the air, wrecked by Min-suk and Blue Hawk's truck as they plowed through the horde. Inside, the 2 heroes were doing what any legends would do, arguing over which is better, a truck or a road roller, while crushing zombies left and right. Colonel Dongho said his truck was way better. Min-suk calmly answered, weighing the pros and cons. Strength for the road roller, speed for the truck, all while splattering zombies like it was a normal commute. But there was no time to chill. The colonel explained there were two big problems on this mission. 1. Everything was blocked, from the station entrance to the subway tracks, so escape was tricky. 2. They had a new kind of mutant hidden in there with the survivors, and no one knew yet what it could do. The colonel showed Min-suk the tablet, and let me tell you, dude has crazy veins on his hands from all the close calls. The colonel started to tell him the real mission. The ventilation system was working perfectly in the station, so they could sneak in through the vents to get close to the survivors without facing a zombie mosh pit first. The colonel said they had to be perfect. The survivors' lives depended on it. But Min-suk straight up disagreed. He said, nope, this plan isn't going to work. That surprised the colonel. Seeing his confused face, Min-suk remembered how he'd lived this situation over and over in the past, and each time the plan almost worked, but the result was always the same. No survivors made it out. Though Min-suk agreed that the colonel always planned the best strategies for the mission, the reality was not that simple. Meanwhile, back with the survivors inside the station, things went pure nightmare mode. Everybody woke up hanging upside down in a sticky spider web, like a bad dream. Diane's mom freaked out, desperate to find her baby. She shook herself free and landed with a painful thud, then started yelling for Diane. But none of the others could help. They had no clue where the baby was. In a panic, she asked the complaining guy from earlier if he'd seen her kid. The poor dude was still hanging and honestly freaked out as well. He begged someone to help cut him loose. Suddenly, the sweet old lady from before crawled up with a new look, a gnarly, evil smile and eyes like red flashlights. The guy realized a second too late that something was super wrong. The granny's face turned all monstrous, her mouth opening way too wide, like Attack on Titan level. She lunged at the guy and, bro, she ate him like a Kit Kat bar. No kidding. Turns out, in this nightmare, sometimes the scariest monsters are wearing the friendliest faces. So, right in front of everyone, the poor guy hanging in the web got devoured, live bro. The other survivors could only watch in total horror. Once the guy hit the floor, you'd think it was all over. Wrong. He stood back up, but not as a human. Now he was a zombie, and he had this gross, torn-up smile on his face, staring at the survivors like they were fresh snacks. Bro, this was the real start of a living nightmare. Panic broke out. Someone yelled, "Zombie!" And the next dude in line, the guy with the man bun, got chomped in seconds. It was like the zombie had beef with him all along. The chaos actually helped a few people break free and try to run, but honestly, there was nowhere to run to. Some survivors were already asking each other how a zombie even managed to get inside in the first place. But hey, when everyone's running for their lives, you don't exactly get answers. Through all the madness, Diane's mom was in a whole different state of panic. She didn't care about anything but finding her child. The others hit a dead end, but suddenly, Diane's mother heard a voice. Baba! That was her baby's voice, still calling out, still somewhere nearby. She went after the sound, ignoring the guy telling her not to go, because what mom wouldn't run headfirst into danger for her kid? Meanwhile, more screams rang out as the others trying to escape got ambushed and tackled by zombies. Chasing the voice, Diane's mother told her daughter she was coming. Down the stairs she went, getting more frantic with every step. Finally, she reached the bottom and called out for Diane. But what she saw broke her heart and her brain. Her little girl was gone. Replacing the cute baby was this huge, freaky, spider-like zombie, eating people like they were some candy. The monster still had Diane's voice, crying out "Baba" in pain. It was messed up. The mom went into full shock. She couldn't handle the truth and froze in place, calling it a nightmare and refusing to fight back. But the zombie baby grabbed her, hugged her, and then, yeah, it was only 1 centimeter away from biting her head clean off. No, bro, this manhwa is so messed up. This is a straight horror manhwa. What the fuck? Except, wait, here comes the dynamic duo. Out of nowhere, Truck Kun arrived, smashing into the station and unleashing a fireball explosion that roasted the mutant zombie. The monster let out a scream, and for a second the mother was alive, watching the chaos unfold. Time for a quick cutaway. Min-suk was breaking down just why this kind of mission always failed in the past. Every try with the colonel's classic plan ended with 0 survivors. He said the mission was an impossible task unless they used inhuman methods. Now here he was, looking totally unbothered while standing inside a blaze, nearly getting grilled himself. Guys, how the fucking way a dude aura farming this insanely? Well, I know this dude is literally classified as non-human, but how can he stay alive while being burnt? Crazy, right? But Minsuk himself said today he also realized he had one trait from this power, which is to be Dami's dad. Hell yeah, this is the most op skill in all manhwa history. Now let's talk about the real boss, the Skinwalker monster. This thing is like Nightmare Spider-Man. Spider legs, a creepy face, and a habit of knocking people out, stealing faces, and wearing them around. It's built like a tank because of its spider exoskeleton, which means the only thing that works against it is heat. So, what did Minsuk do? He went up in flames, literally. That way, he could fight and hurt the Skinwalker. Even the monster was scared of Minsuk's flaming aura. The creature went on the attack, firing a spiderweb at Minsuk. But Minsuk ripped it away and yanked the monster into the ground, smashing its head. Then he rushed in and threw punch after punch, each one like a sledgehammer. The Skinwalker howled in pain, blood flying everywhere, as Minsuk forced it back. His plan was simple: burn the monster, punch it into submission, and break through its armor by using pure flames. But just as Minsuk was about to finish it off with his final punch, he got totally blindsided. A stone hit him hard. He looked up, shocked, and saw Dion's mother. Eyes full of tears, she begged him not to hurt her baby, even though the baby wasn't even her little girl anymore. For her, the pain of losing her child was worse than any danger to herself. Unfortunately, that hesitation handed the Skinwalker a perfect opening. I fucking hate a stupid side character like this, for God's sake. Suddenly, the monster's mouth opened up wide, becoming a whirlpool of sharp teeth. Yikes. In a split second, it sucked so hard that not even Minsuk could hold his ground. He got dragged along like a leaf in a storm. Diane's mother, helpless and heartbroken, watched as she and Minsuk both got pulled towards the horror, arms and legs flailing. "Minsuk, please, I beg you, let this woman die in agony." So, things were looking really rough. The mutant zombie's mouth was sucking hard enough to turn Minsuk into a human smoothie. But our dude wasn't giving up. He slammed his hand into the ground, holding on with everything he had. Still, the creature kept pulling, like some nightmare vacuum cleaner from hell. Death was closing in fast, and even a powerhouse like Minsuk seemed powerless. But just then, bam, a memory of Dami hit him. He remembered his daughter reminding him back in the cell that she would always stand by him, no matter what the world thought. That power-up from his daughter's love kicked in right on time. Minsuk put his head down and then smashed it into the floor over and over, breaking the ground and trying to find some way to escape the suction. Still, the zombie did not give up, refusing to stop its horrifying attack. Suddenly, the Skinwalker zombie paused. Why? It had just met Minsuk's beautiful uppercut, right to the jaw. His punch was so clean it knocked the monster's head back hard. In its dying moments, the creature tried to play the sad baby card, crying out for its mother in Dion's voice. But Minsuk didn't show any mercy. He hammered the monster's face with a brutal knee, making it clear he wasn't falling for it. After that, Minsuk kept his distance while the zombie gasped and vomited up blood. Yeah, it was messed up. Even pathetic. The thing could only scream as Minsuk started tearing it apart, piece by piece. Jumping over to the other survivors, things weren't any better. They were stuck, stacking tables and chairs into a barricade, bracing for zombies to break in. This wasn't your basic shuffle-walk zombie horde. The Skinwalker traumatized them, sneaking around like monsters from a nightmare. One survivor tried to keep everyone calm, but his son pointed out how silent it had gotten. No footsteps, no snarling, nothing. Suddenly, the door shook violently. Everyone's hearts dropped. Something was about to smash its way through, and there was nowhere to run. As the boy and his dad stared in terror, they caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure outside. That's when they recognized him. Minsuk, muscles on display, standing tall. He just single-handedly cleaned up the zombie threat, saving them all. Now for the operation's wild end. Remember those vents? Minsuk came flying out of one of them like a pro. The colonel was standing front row, totally hyped by his teammates' work. By the time the sun came up, all 37 survivors had been rescued. Soldiers checking the station couldn't believe their eyes when they spotted Diane, still alive, hidden in one of the monster webs. Seriously, Minsuk pulled off a miracle. In a spot where almost everyone expected them to get wiped out, he saved basically the whole crew. But damn, that mother is supposed to die for almost killing our dad. The author is too kind for real. Back at the base, the mood was electric. Dami was stunned and proud when she saw her dad being cheered on by the very same people who thought he was a threat just yesterday. People were calling him the Miracle Man now. Minsuk, ever the shy hero, just raised his hand and gave a small wave. Captain Hyeri tried to act mad, probably jealous she didn't get the glory, but deep down, she was impressed too. Colonel Bluehawk stepped up and announced that Minsuk had earned everyone's trust and passed the test. In the middle of all the noise, Minsuk's eyes searched for only one thing: Dami. When he spotted her, he ran over and gave her the biggest, most relieved hug in the world. She was his #1 priority, always. And then, the results. The mission had 15 deaths and 12 injuries, but out of all those trapped, 40 people were saved, including some no one thought had a chance. The barracks should have been a place for everyone to breathe easy and rest, but here comes that dark plot twist. The sergeant who just finished the mission could barely move, dragging himself to bed. As he lay there, a weird, infected bulge grew on his neck. Then, he turned his head, giving the creepiest, unnatural smile ever, the kind that said trouble was brewing right under everyone's nose. This skinwalker is pissing me off. But none of that bad stuff was known yet. Outside, everyone kept on celebrating. Dami shared a precious moment with Dian and her mom, hanging out peacefully for a change. If I were Dami, I would slap the mother. This mom made me so salty. Meanwhile, Colonel Bluehawk and Minsuk were chilling, talking like total bros and patting each other on the back. After the whole Miracle Man rescue mission, the colonel took a moment to reflect. He straight up admitted he always thought Minsuk was special, but he never expected the guy to pull off a miracle like that, saving so many people when all odds were stacked against them. The colonel tipped his drink, saying tonight was worth celebrating. But, he joked, if these two tried to drink enough to have real fun, there wouldn't be anything left in the bottle. He raised a toast, honoring the soldiers and martyrs they'd lost, and wishing for everyone left to survive a bit longer in this grim world. Minsuk smiled at the gesture, but bro, you could tell something was eating away at him. Minsuk finally asked why the colonel never interrogated him. Let's be honest, most folks would be dying to know how some random blonde muscle machine knows so much about battle plans or why he's walking around with the strength of a high-tier monster. Anyone else would be nosy and suspicious, but the colonel just laughed. He said he already had a good idea of what was up, and get this, the colonel said he's read enough manga to get the gist. Man, he's totally one of us. At the end of the day, Bluehawk didn't care about the science fiction stuff. His main goal was to help his people survive, no matter what. You could see the honest, gentle heart in the guy, even in a world gone mad. Bro, I like him. Hearing that, Minsuk smiled. He told the colonel he hadn't changed after all these years but didn't drop any more hints. The colonel noticed that, but let it go. Minsuk is a man full of secret anyway. Then, suddenly curious, the colonel asked why Minsuk was still hanging around at the brigade instead of just sprinting off to Daejeon, the place that Minsuk once told him to be his destination, especially since he was so powerful. Minsuk admitted he had unfinished business here, and boy, that totally surprised the colonel. As they talked, Minsuk's face grew serious. He thought back to all his past lives. Every time he rushed, things only ended in disaster. Colonel Bluehawk caught on quickly. He realized Minsuk was worried that if he pushed for Daejeon too soon, Dami would end up lost, suffering, or even killed. And then the colonel dropped a line for the ages. The closest thing in your life, and sometimes the hardest to control, is your own child. Minsuk laughed, thinking the colonel absolutely nailed it. That's when Captain Hyeri came up in conversation. Minsuk just wondered out loud where she was, but even that was enough to make the colonel chug his drink like he wanted to forget. He called for more bottles just from hearing that scoundrel captain name. Damn, are they have beef for each other? I remember how Captain Hyeri said Bluehawk is annoying too. Just then, Dami came over, looking tired and wanting to get some sleep. Like a true dad, Minsuk hopped up to walk her back, ignoring her insistence that she didn't need help. The two of them walked off together, and the colonel just sat there, noticing how, for all his strength, Minsuk looked so gentle and human when he was next to his daughter. It actually made the colonel proud and kind of excited about planning for a hopeful future. He made a mental note that he wasn't going to let this walking miracle run off so easily. Bluehawk wanted that brain and brawn on his team for good, but the wholesomeness didn't last. A soldier suddenly ran up, sweating bullets and grabbing his neck, reporting that something terrible was happening. While doom was brewing outside, Minsuk was having a super vulnerable walk and talk with Dami. He couldn't get the colonel's words out of his mind. He saw how precious his daughter truly was, and suddenly, he couldn't help but ask a tough question. Despite all his power, despite saving her again and again, he was worried. Was Dami deep down actually afraid of him? He didn't look the same anymore. He didn't even feel like the same man. So, trembling a bit, he asked, was she scared of what he'd become? Bro, Dami's answer was almost too real. She admitted it, she was afraid. She said the worry was in her mind every single day. She worried that one day, her father might lose control and kill her, like he did to so many zombies and monsters. The pain was so much she couldn't fake being okay anymore. With tears streaming down her cheeks and her voice cracking, she begged for her real dad back, instead of the cold, dangerous, super strong stranger in front of her. Talk about heartbreaking. Even in a world full of zombies and chaos, those real, honest fears are sometimes the scariest thing of all. But chill, guys. This dad tricked us. Yeah. Turns out that was just a wild hallucination messing with our boy Min-suk's mind. He snapped out of it fast when Dami called him, worried, and asking what was going on with him. Still shaking from the dream, Min-suk decided not to burden her with his fears. But Dami was getting a cough, and the weather wasn't helping at all. Dad mode hit instantly. Min-suk told Dami to hurry inside and let him get medicine for her. Just when you thought things would chill, Min-suk's danger senses lit up like crazy. He called out Dami's full name, which left her super confused. Next thing she knew, her dad came flying at her like a zombie was about to pounce. Dami's eyes went wide with terror, but turns out she wasn't the target. Min-suk's fist slammed shut on something else. Once the smoke cleared, Dami saw her dad had just crushed an infected mosquito in his hand. Bro, these mosquitoes were the real silent killers. One bite, and you'd turn into a zombie yourself. Before anybody could breathe, code black alarms echoed through the base. That was the signal for everyone. The zombies had invaded. Evacuation was urgent. Flipping over to Blue Hawk, the colonel, he was dealing with a soldier in front of him whose face went all monstrous in seconds. This dude, who used to follow orders, was now snapping his teeth and grinning like a creepy psycho. It was a straight-up horror show. But Blue Hawk didn't waste time. He grabbed the dude by the neck and remembered Min-suk's warning about staying put for strategic reasons. You see, the colonel was a beast himself, famous for deadlifting more than most people's cars and fighting off squads single-handedly. In classic Blue Hawk style, he ripped off the soldier zombie's head like it was just another day at work. Now the survivors were screaming, panicking, and the colonel had to pull everyone together. He ordered the soldiers to get everyone to the shelter. No excuses allowed. When nobody moved fast enough, the colonel let out a full-on roar to snap them out of it. And suddenly, everyone got moving. Inside, you could tell the colonel was fuming. No way was his fortress getting clowned by a plague of zombies. He studied the infected neck on one dead zombie, but just then more screams shot through the air. More smiley zombies started rampaging through camp, and the colonel was not having it. He grabbed his legendary attack stick and went wild, smashing zombie faces left and right. Every single one of those creeps learned whose turf they were on real quick. Blue Hawk turned beast mode, knocking zombie heads with swings, stabs, and even slapped one clear across the room like it was a baseball. This was super satisfying, but there were just so many of them. They started circling and trying to strike from behind. Even with the colonel's reaction speed, he nearly got bitten, but managed to smash the zombie's head at the last second. Still, they just kept coming, and Blue Hawk had to hold his ground with a full-on battle cry. Elsewhere, the survivors and civilians were shuffled into the shelter as fast as possible. Inside, Min-suk put his own plan in motion. He got Dami fully geared up, helmet on, goggles, mask, the works. She was totally weirded out, but he told her, no matter what, not to take any of it off. Dami finally asked what kind of monster they were fighting this time. Min-suk dropped the name. This was a Mosky-type zombie, a mutated freak shaped like a mosquito. And get this, Mosky might sound cute, but it only takes one bite to turn someone into a zombie. The tricky part? The incubation period is different for every victim. You could turn in minutes or hours. So now, the camp was no longer safe. Zombies and virus carriers could be anywhere. Min-suk had to protect his daughter from enemies you could barely see, even when they were right up in your face. Man, things just went from bad to absolutely insane real quick, and this father-daughter duo needs every bit of luck and firepower they can get. Anyway, despite all those lives and all that experience, Min-suk was seriously thrown off by this new Mosky-type threat. He'd only met mosquito zombies in one of his past lives, so even Giga Chad Zombie Dad didn't have much history to fall back on this time. He didn't know why this safe place got raided so soon. Fuck this variable, this timeline is changing too much for him to handle. But bro, being scared is nothing when your main mission is to keep your daughter safe. This man was absolutely fuming, just imagining a future where he couldn't save her. He knew what was up. Mosquito zombies weren't just coming one by one. The real enemy was hiding somewhere, and soon the base would be swimming in a full-blown swarm. Even as panic crept in, news about the zombie mosquitoes made it to Captain Hyeri, who was already feeling overwhelmed. An informant told her the zombie expert had ordered everyone to wrap up in full coverage, clothes, masks, the works. Hearing his name made Captain Hyeri flash back to the colonel chatting with Min-suk, which annoyed her for some reason. But instead of getting moody, she went into total boss mode and ordered her team to suit up and crush those bugs. She also wanted a location check on Blue Hawk, but got a weak answer from the soldier. That's when another soldier up on the wall started yelling. He said there is one zombie marching to their post. At first, Captain Hyeri thought it was a waste of time. Why care about a lone zombie outside when there's chaos inside? But then the soldier got a bit panicked and described what he saw, a zombie with an incredibly creepy look. As he checked again, he spotted a massive hairy toad monster in the distance, its mouth stretching open like a trash can. It wasn't just sitting there, it started spitting out mosquitoes by the hundreds, turning itself into a living factory of death. The terrified soldier shouted that an entire storm of mosquito zombies was rising up, and before Captain Hyeri could process it, the sky went black with the swarm. She ordered everyone to run for cover, and just as all hell broke loose, she suddenly spotted a flying figure in the sky. Spoiler, not Superman, just your favorite zombie expert, Min-suk. Mid-jump, she got speechless. What the hell happening right now? Well, let's rewind a bit to the shelter, where soldiers were looking for any help they could get. But Min-suk refused to fight. His daughter's safety was his only priority. He called out the soldiers for asking a random civilian to do their dirty work and said he was not budging until Dami herself let him go. Suddenly, Dami did something unexpected. She took off her construction hat and gave it to her father. She said she was too weak to protect anyone against zombie mosquitoes, but she hoped her dad would step up. Her hands trembled and her eyes filled with tears, begging for her dad to save everyone, the whole reason he came there in the first place. Boom! Dad mode activated. Min-suk grabbed his custom flamethrower and planted it like a battle flag. Fueled by Dami's belief and desperate hopes, he raised the pipe and aimed at the incoming swarm. Dude's answer was simple. If hell had to come down, he would bring the fire himself. He torched the mosquitoes with a blazing jet, roasting the monsters by the dozens. Far away, the ugly Slider Toad watched his army burn, rage building up in his eyes. But Slider wasn't done. This nightmare frog suddenly made an epic leap into the sky, trying to escape the flames, which only ticked Min-suk off more. Our boy refused to let up and chased it with a giant leap right into Captain Hyeri's truck. Now things got spicy. Captain Hyeri was already in pursuit, determined to end the monster responsible for this swarm. She was annoyed but kind of impressed at the same time, joking that Min-suk must have cheat codes running in his veins. She then asked if Min-suk really know how to kill that ugly toad. Our boy deadpanned back, confirming her suspicions without trying to flex. Captain Hyeri told him the plan. They were going after that thing first, then after, she'd be grilling Min-suk with a million questions. And this time, she promised not to let him dodge or lie his way out. Bro, she was not messing around. Full angry mama mode unlocked. Now we're in an all-out chase. Captain Hyeri slammed the gas pedal, truck screaming down the road, with both of them tracking the Slider Toad as it tore through the forest. When the monster reached its cave deep in the wilds, it turned into full horror. The thing howled, calling out with a deep screech to summon its main body. That's when the ultimate boss stepped out. A giant, five-eyed ogre zombie, covered in eyes and looking straight out of a nightmare. Slider isn't just a monster, it's an elite, host zombie, able to make more minions at will, duplicating itself and protecting the real brains behind the whole pandemic. First off, the Slider Toad zombie thought it was going to hide out and cause chaos, but nope. Out of nowhere, Min-suk swooped in and slammed the creature's ugly face into the dirt. That sneak attack worked perfectly, and while he squeezed the toad's neck, the thing coughed up one final swarm of mosquitoes. Didn't matter, Captain Hyeri fried the whole batch with her flamethrower, burning the swarm into a fine zombie crisp. They pulled this move off because they'd discussed it earlier. And good thing too, just before arriving at the Slider's hideout, Captain Hyeri found out that all the civilians in the brigade were safe now, thanks to killing all those bugs. Dami and the others were going to be alright. The brigade's ability to bounce back even in chaos was no joke. That was all thanks to the absolute GOAT leadership of the Colonel Blue Hawk. That's exactly why Min-suk had risked everything to team up here with the brigade. So, our boy said thank you for telling him, yet Captain Hyeri said no big deal about saving everyone, but honestly she knew it was massive. The only reason the soldiers even had a shot was because Min-suk taught them exactly how to handle the swarm the right way. Every report she got was just praise for the zombie expert. But Min-suk told her to keep her eyes on the real prize. The main body was still hiding out, and if the host toad delivered any info, it could put everyone at risk again. So, they had to focus on their last critical mission. Captain Hyeri was on standby. Her job was simple. Torch anything that crawled out, give those monsters zero chance to recover. At the same time, Min-suk explained this wasn't just any boss fight. The main zombie had a busted ability, proliferation. It could duplicate itself and spit out endless new zombies like a factory, all connected in a freaky network. Even if you kill the main one, the spawns could help it regenerate. Captain Hyeri was low-key hoping Min-suk had some wild secret trick. He just nodded his head, saying nothing, but his confidence said everything. He had a strategy. Now for the main act. Min-suk jammed his arm into the tunnel and crushed it, causing an instant cave-in behind him. He told Captain Hyeri beforehand, the only way to win here was to lock himself inside and just go on a rampage until everything was wiped out. So now, with no chance to escape and monsters closing in, our boy simply declared war, one man against an army of zombies. Outside, Captain Hyeri could only hear the mayhem. She listened as the ground shook with every smash and crash from inside the block tunnel. She couldn't even help, just standing outside and feeling lost. Those sounds is no joke. Right then, she remembered a heated argument she'd once had with the Colonel. He had insisted they all support Minsuk, calling him humanity's hope, more than just some helper, but the last card left for survival. Even though Captain Hyeri got annoyed at the time, she had to admit, watching and hearing Minsuk inside now, the Colonel had a point. Suddenly, a transmission buzzed in. A report. Whatever it said freaked out Captain Hyeri, but what it was about is kept a secret for now. Finally, morning came. The blockade was still standing, no movement. But then boom! Minsuk's super bloodied hand punched straight out of the rubble. Dude had been inside for over 18 hours, fighting non-stop. And get ready for the absolute crazy stat. He wiped out over 7 million zombies. That's not even a typo, 7,127,000 just gone by the hands of one dad. Minsuk crawled out, all banged up but still flexing, popping his limbs back into place like nothing happened. This wasn't a guy, it was a cheat code made real. Black Code Operation. Complete, Zombie Apocalypse Edition. This guy have the same aura farming level with Sung Jinwoo. Back at the brigade, things looked intense. Captain Hyeri ran straight back after she heard the shocking report. It seemed like the Colonel had died because of what she heard. But plot twist, he was just chilling, munching on chips and living his best life. When he saw Captain Hyeri's freaked out face, he clowned her for acting like she'd seen a ghost. Captain Hyeri just so confused, the radio stated that the Blue Hawk is in danger. Hearing that, the Colonel even started tearing up from laughing, totally savoring her reaction. He remembered how yesterday Hyeri was yelling at him, and now she was all frantic about his safety. Hilarious, right? At least to the Colonel. Captain Hyeri stayed annoyed, only to find out the Colonel had soloed all the zombies in the plaza with nothing but grit and a stick. No military tech, no fancy weapons. His major injuries? Just a scratch or two. So, after all that chaos, the base survivors were safe, the virus couldn't spread, and the Colonel got to flex hard to everyone. Even though Captain Hyeri felt annoyed, the Colonel just reminded her friendly but firm. Don't forget your rank, kid. He's still the boss. Anyway, the mood shifted as the Colonel turned to Captain Hyeri and asked her what was up. Why had she come back alone? Was the mission a bust, or did they finally squash that main boss zombie? Hyeri stayed quiet at first, thinking about what the Colonel said before, that Minsuk might actually be humanity's last hope. And now, looking back, she was finally starting to see what he meant. The morning after this whole mess, Minsuk came back to base like a walking legend, scraped up but still moving like a god. Everyone went crazy with excitement, and even Captain Hyeri gave him a nod of respect. Then, something funny happened. By lunchtime, this same tough-as-nails captain was practicing her pickup lines like she was in high school or something. She wanted to find Minsuk, chat, maybe say thanks, but she got so flustered she couldn't even keep it cool. The soldiers were walking by, watching her silently losing her mind over there. Hyeri was so deep in her own head, brainstorming what to say, that she didn't even see them. She wondered if it was even worth making a move, but she knew deep down this was her only way to truly thank Minsuk for saving everyone's butts. Finally, she let herself smile, saying out loud that he was the real MVP. Just then, she noticed Minsuk talking to the Colonel, and decided this was the least awkward way to jump in, just slide into the conversation. But before she could reach them, she overheard something that made her freeze. The Colonel was in shock, as Minsuk said straight up that he and Dami would be leaving the brigade that night. For the Colonel, this was a stab to the heart. He begged Minsuk to reconsider, saying that if another elite-level zombie showed up, the brigade would be toast. Even monsters like Blue Hawk couldn't guarantee safety. He really wanted Minsuk to stay until the brigade could defend itself. But Minsuk shut that all down with a single, ice-cold question. Why should he care? For real, he told them both he didn't owe the brigade or anyone there a single thing. His one and only goal was to protect Dami, nothing else. Captain Hyeri heard this and was floored. She suddenly stormed into the conversation, challenging him directly. Minsuk didn't back down, saying again that he never cared about saving these people, only his daughter mattered. Hyeri was angry and hurt, spinning on her heel and leaving them behind. Here's the rough truth. Minsuk was doing this on purpose. Every time before, in every reincarnation, when he played things normally, Captain Hyeri would eventually catch feelings for him. This time, he wanted to end that chance cold. He wanted her to see him as a monster, not someone worth liking or loving, because that was the only way he knew to keep her safe. So when he saw her listening, he leaned in and delivered those harsh lines, crushing any growing feelings. Even though it made things a lot quieter in his heart, the colonel caught on and warned him, pushing Hyeri away so hard could be dangerous in the future too. And Daejeon, the place everyone thought would be safe, wasn't unbreakable in this nightmare world. Real talk, the colonel thought it would be better to stay, power up the brigade, and make it the best shelter in the apocalypse. With two living legends, himself and Minsuk, they could actually do it. But Minsuk knew he couldn't risk staying. The timeline was on turbo speed. In his last lives, the elite zombies showed up a decade after the end of the world started, but now they appeared within just 10 days. If things kept up like this, the brigade would get steamrolled before it ever became the fortress people dreamed of. Titanic-level zombie bosses were next, and he didn't want to stick around for that. What the hell, that thing is super scary! For the last time, he finally stated that Damien himself will go to Dijon this night. By night, everything changed. The scene panned out to a ruined city, and there was a monstrous zombie, a slider variant, with teeth for days and way too many eyes, out hunting. Guess who was rolling up? Minsuk, still rocking his trusty road roller, driving straight at the beast. The monster screamed, but this time, Minsuk wasn't alone. Behind him, rows of tanks and armored vehicles thundered forward. Tanks blasted out shots, wiping out zombie spawn, and Minsuk led the charge like a boss. Backtrack a bit to the last chat with the colonel. He'd told him his plan before leaving, and it finally made sense. If you want to know what the best shelter looks like, let's go see it together. He proposed for everyone to go to Daejeon together. Now, the expedition's rolling, and even the colonel was getting a thrill out of riding with Zombie Daddy. For Minsuk, though, all that mattered was Dami. She gave him the reason to keep moving forward, and she even made the same brave gesture as before, showing she was all in. Thus begins the exploration for the Daejeon shelter, with Minsuk leading the expedition charge as the survival of humanity hinges on this mission. So, on a stormy day, the squad was making their move, when suddenly this behemoth zombie slug, called the Viscous, slithered out of the water. This wasn't just a big monster, it was huge, towering over suspension bridges and looking like the mother of all nightmares. The worst part? Everything about it was poisonous. Get even a little slime on you and it's game over. With only one bridge left between them and Daejeon, the colonel turned to Minsuk for ideas. Minsuk, always the expert, explained that the Viscous was mostly active at night, making it vulnerable to UV light from the sun. When the sun shined, the zombie's skin would harden and slow it down, and that was when they could strike. So he told the colonel they'd have to hold out for 2 hours, waiting for the clouds to clear before they could attack the head and slice off the spikes. Good news? No other zombies in the area. Bad news? The storm was not letting up, so they had to get the gear and be ready. While the gears were turning, one of the soldiers started bad-mouthing Minsuk behind his back. This guy just couldn't believe how Minsuk seemed to know everything about zombies, acting like someone who'd lived through it all before. He insulted the colonel too. Bad move, bro. Turned out, the Blue Hawk was right behind him. The colonel leaned in close, shut the guy up fast, and all everyone else heard was the sound of panicked screaming. Problem solved. Meanwhile, Dami had been sitting so long her back was killing her. Minsuk, always the goofy dad, crept up and scared her just for fun. Dami dropped her umbrella in shock and yelled at him for freaking her out. A bit trembling, Dami said she's still not used with his dad new face. Minsuk brought her some snacks and apologized for still looking nothing like her original father. Dami stood quiet, but Minsuk got nervous. He rambled about maybe not even being her dad anymore, and his own mind was eating him alive with doubt. Finally, he blurted out the question he was most afraid to ask. Why did Dami accept him even after he turned into a monster? Dami pointed at his eyes and said they never changed. Minsuk didn't understand, because his eyes were red now. But Dami started munching on her snack and told a story about the day her mom left. Back then, she was only 7, holding her father's hand and looking into his eyes. What she remembered most was how sad those eyes were, eyes that saw her with guilt and love, always thinking he wasn't enough. She said honestly, her dad was the one who really needed comforting, even now. Dami kept going, saying that even when the whole nightmare started, she only realized it was really him when she saw that same look again. No matter what his face looked like, she just saw her real dad, gentle, sad, and loving her no matter what. Bro, I would said this 1,000 times. They are the best father-daughter duo in all manhwa history. Then, the big fight kicked off. Morning rolled in, and the sun finally peeked through the storm. The viscous slug's skin toughened up, and the colonel gave the order, attack. They blasted it with heavy shellfire, and the monster shrieked in pain. But check this. Minsuk, channeling pure anime energy, jumped up with 2 axes like a total boss, sliced the head clean in half, and finished the elite zombie once and for all. The haters and doubters had nothing to say now. The colonel understood there were plenty of skeptics, but after seeing that, even he had to admit this guy was a miracle. Min-suk stood on top of the beast's corpse, a symbol of hope in a world gone crazy. The Blue Hawk said it himself. Sometimes there's just no better weapon. They have to put their faith in Min-suk. This triggered a trip down memory lane for Min-suk. He remembered in his 99th apocalypse lifetime, it took him over a year, 378 days, to reach Daejeon. But now, thanks to this mad awakened body and his new team, they made it in just 14 days. Time to rewind to day 3 of the outbreak in Daejeon. Back then, zombies were already starting to take over the city, but an elite special force rolled out and handled business fast. They wiped out the first wave of monsters and celebrated, but then got news that all the other cities had fallen, except Daejeon. The commander knew the disaster was massive, and there was no backup left. But there was hope. Daejeon held strong because of the legendary Alpha unit. Team leader Alpha checked in with the commander and asked permission to go for an expansion mission. The commander hesitated, but in the end, he pinned everything on Alpha Team. They were the one hope left. If the commander and the unit could hold the front, then maybe, just maybe, Daejeon could outlast the apocalypse. So let's rewind to right after Team Alpha's earlier report. The leader saw a strange, terrifying creature with a body like a statue and a nightmare face watching from the top of the tower. Red eyes glared down at all the humans from above. Now, what the hell this creepy thing is? Anyway, snap back to the present with our heroes finally reaching Daejeon. When the colonel and the crew took their first real look at the city, even Blue Hawk was shook. This was supposed to be the ultimate safe zone, and dang, it actually looked amazing. The city was spotless, the defenses were stacked, and not a single area seemed to have taken real damage. Soldiers and survivors couldn't believe what they were seeing. Min-suk had been preaching about Daejeon all this time, and for once it really felt like hope. Dami turned to her dad, telling him he was right. Daejeon looked like everything he ever wanted. But instead of celebrating, Min-suk was just getting more angry and frustrated. Dami was super confused. Shouldn't this be a winning moment? But for Min-suk, there was something super off about all of it. You see, in every single lifetime, Korea's cities had crumbled to the apocalypse, Daejeon included. When he reached the city before, barely any neighborhoods were under control, and things were a mess. They first only could protect 3 districts and slowly claiming the other land. But this time, in just 14 days, the place was sparkling, fortified, almost too perfect. That's exactly why Min-suk's instincts were screaming. All those lifetimes fighting monsters, and this was the first time Daejeon seemed untouched, impossibly so. It wasn't normal, and his sixth sense was ringing like a broken alarm clock. So he pulled Dami in close and ordered her not to leave his side. No matter what, his gut told him trouble was near. Meanwhile, the colonel was getting his squad hyped and ready to finally push through the gates, but one soldier had a weird report. Back at Sejong, he had seen a massive plane and something even stranger. Huge lines drawn across the ground, so big and weird, it stuck in his brain. For safety, he sent up a drone. The footage showed an absolutely enormous symbol, something nobody could really understand. Even the Blue Hawk was thrown off by it. But as soon as he saw the footage, Min-suk went off. He shoved the colonel away, grabbing the tablet with shaking hands, eyes blazing in panic. The colonel was not happy, but Min-suk couldn't help it. He knew something bad was in play. Over at Daejeon's Expo Tower, some mysterious folks in blindfolds got the alert. 10 outsiders were approaching. The group's leader, covered in shadows, told his underling to bring in these newcomers unharmed. All the while, that strange drawing was stuck in Min-suk's mind. A picture of some angelic, godlike figure. He didn't know what it meant just yet, but his instincts finally gave him clarity. Their safe haven was being watched over, and maybe even run, by something way more sinister than a normal zombie. Inside Daejeon, a massive stage stood, a voice ringing, stating 2 weeks earlier, during these dark, hopeless days, the city was stuck in despair. Then, out of nowhere, a man named Baek Do-hyun, blindfolded, big superhero energy, stood atop the expo tower. He jumped off, landing like a boss, and instantly flipped the mood. People cheered him wildly, treating him not just as a leader but practically a messiah. He told them how the rest of humanity had fallen, but Daejeon was special, not due to luck, but destiny. The mayor claimed they were chosen, and their job was to light the fires of humanity all over again. The citizens worshipped him, crying tears of hope. Baek Do-hyun promised them that as long as he stood, Daejeon's flame would never go out. He would protect them to the very end. And now, as Min-suk stares at the drawing and feels shivers in his bones, it's clear. There's something massive hiding beneath this perfect surface, and only our hero seems to sense that the safest city in Korea may be hiding the scariest secret yet. As Min-suk and his crew stood there, the mood was pretty much the opposite, all confused, tense, and staring at each other like, what the heck is happening? The colonel was seriously doubting if this was the Daejeon that Min-suk had been bragging about. But Min-suk shook his head and admitted this was all new, even to him. He'd never seen people worship someone like a god before. In his past lives, the Blue Hawk unit was always the strongest force in Daejeon, but now they were acting like background extras. And even more worrying, the one who should have led them, Jiwoo, the leader of Alpha, was nowhere to be seen. With this strange mayor and all these weird changes, Min-suk knew something big had messed up the timeline. But the party kept rolling. Baek Do-hyun made another grand speech, calling the day a time of celebration and thanking the goddess for sending new friends, that is, Min-suk and his gang, to help with the city's defense. All eyes turned to the newcomers, and it was awkward as heck. Right as Baek Do-hyun finished speaking, a grenade bounced near his face and exploded into a cloud of smoke. Boom! Smoke everywhere. Min-suk, the colonel, and the others dropped low, hacking and coughing, while Dami got checked for injuries by her worried dad. Luckily, she was totally fine. As everyone tried to see through the smoke, Min-suk's sharp eyes caught something that made his blood run cold. The mayor, yeah, the all-powerful, untouchable Baek Do-hyun, was on his knees choking on the smoke, and right behind him was a masked soldier ready to pull the trigger. It was Jiwoo, the real hero of Daejeon, finally making his entrance. With a clear shot, Jiwoo didn't hesitate. He pulled the trigger. Baek Do-hyun dropped in front of everyone, dead, right? The shocked crowd watched as soldiers from the Alpha unit rushed in and immediately tackled Jiwoo, arresting him for killing their savior. Jiwoo, now cuffed and surrounded, yelled desperately at the people. He begged them to wake up, snap out of the spell, and realize Baek Do-hyun was tricking them from the beginning. He wanted them to fight the illusion and take back their lives before it was too late. But then, the impossible happened. The corpse of Baek Do-hyun flickered, and the guy just got up, like nothing touched him. The crowd lost their minds, totally convinced this was some kind of miracle, and started screaming for Jiwoo's execution as a traitor. Baek Do-hyun smiled, loving every second, and claimed it was their faith that brought him back to life. He called them citizens of the City of Miracles, cranking up the craziness. The people, now completely obsessed, believed that a goddess named Giryong was guarding their city. Baek Do-hyun announced a new era, a chapter of unbreakable light, and the brainwashed crowd exploded in wild celebration as Min-suk and his friends looked on in total horror. Bro, this whole cult is creeping me out more than the zombies. Then, our dad remembered a collection of memories from his crazy past. He remembered at his worst moments, thinking about hanging himself, him being someone like Superman now, and even a goddess floating down like some magical creature. Min-suk kept wondering, was he really the only one in this bizarre situation? Something about Daejeon and that weird mayor with the blindfold kept making his anxiety worse, like he was slowly seeing the last pieces of the puzzle forming right in front of his eyes. As he stared at Baek Do-hyun on the big stage, all cheered up and worshipped by the crowd, it hit Min-suk hard. This mayor guy felt way too familiar. His own face flickered in his mind, half human, half zombie. That's when Min-suk connected the dots. Baek Do-hyun was just like him, a secret zombie hiding in human clothes. That was nuts, because so far, Min-suk thought he was the only freak like this. Turns out he wasn't. Well, that makes sense. Later that night, the colonel and the rest of the team gathered back at their place in Daejeon. Bro, this place is like a hotel. That's nuts since we are now in zombie Manhwa. The place was clean. Water and power were working, almost too perfect. But his soldiers were suspicious. A soldier pointed out something odd about the whole city. He said the mayor's exploding head stunt, where he was shot but survived, was such a fake show. He thought the whole thing was staged by that black-haired soldier who pulled the trigger, and now they were planning an execution the next day. The soldiers were getting nervous, saying it was probably best to get out of Dodge from here before stuff went sideways. The colonel made everyone leave and asked them to call for Min-suk. When they were alone, he seriously asked Min-suk if Baek Do-hyun was a monster too. Min-suk didn't even try to deny it. He admitted Baek felt inhuman, even to him, and that he didn't come here to set anyone up. The mayor was a complete unknown, a variable in his plan. The colonel understood and confessed he was worried about leaving his own brigade for so long. Daejeon had tempting tech but was way too messed up right now, with people acting like zombies themselves, worshipping a mayor like he was a god. There was no way to rebuild humanity in a city gone this crazy. So they all agreed. Time to get out before things got even weirder. The next day, Min-suk decided to just go for it and tried to meet the mayor directly. He walked up to the Expo Tower gate and asked the guards to let him in. At first, the guards weren't buying it, telling him to go back to his hotel, but Min-suk said, "Relay this message for me. He'll want to talk." That was enough to get a meeting with Baek Do-hyun, the big boss himself. Sitting across the mayor's slick office, Min-suk hinted he had something special to share. He told the mayor, "I'll agree to what you want, but only if you let my people go peacefully." In our dad's mind, he called Daejeon a full-on cult to the Blue Hawk, warning that nobody in a cult lets people just walk out. They get super violent, people could die if things went badly. He remembers how he and Dami once died from the same energy cultist in his 33rd timeline. Cultist in the apocalypse is no joke, but then Min-suk dropped the bomb to Baek Do-hyun. If he was like him, a zombie in disguise, then there shouldn't be two of them in one city. He claimed he was also chosen by the goddess, just like Baek Do-hyun. The mayor's eyes narrowed, and suddenly he lunged forward, grabbing Min-suk by the face like an anime villain and pushing him into the table. He demanded proof. Is Min-suk really chosen, or just a demon faking it? Damn, two monster men about to throw down over which one is the real chosen one. Yesterday, Baek Do-hyun sniffed the air. He started thinking that something smelled really gross. He wondered where the nasty stench was coming from. He had never smelled something like it before. Then he looked down and noticed our boy Min-suk, glowing alone and looking all spooky. Baek Do-hyun asked what Min-suk's name was. Min-suk's eyes started glowing red, and he told Baek that he was Ryu Min-suk. Now, after getting slammed into the ground, the force was so crazy that the floor started to crack. Do-hyun was struggling and thinking about how that nasty stink had been following Min-suk since yesterday, and now it was even worse. He was already suspicious because he had planned to call him in today, but Min-suk just showed up by himself. And now, this nasty guy wanted to say he was just like him? With super angry, he told him to prove it, to show if he was really chosen by the goddess or just another tricky demon dude. Out of nowhere, our boy can escape from Do-hyun, and a big red aura started blazing around him. Now our boy was so bananas, he was annoyed to the max. Do-hyun can't hold back any longer, so he attacks our MC again. The attack was so strong, it broke the giant windows of the office. Now things were getting even crazier. Right outside the office, the deputy mayor of Dojeon, Kim Sang-chung, was running to his boss's room, looking stressed. He asked the guards about the crazy noises. The guards said they heard loud sounds, but the mayor was not answering. Kim freaked out and told the guards to break down the door. But the guards said the mayor gave strict orders, no one could go in. Supposedly, the mayor had something important to discuss with this Ryu Min-suk guy. Kim was confused and asked who the heck Ryu Min-suk was anyway. Back inside, the fight was getting wild. Both these crazy fuck zombie were moving super fast, like action movie ninjas, throwing each other around and wrecking everything. Min-suk started looking even more like a monster, with a dark aura and super red glowing eyes. He went all out, attacking Baek like a total savage. Every hit made the room shake. Stuff was flying everywhere. These two dudes were on another level. After a while, both Do-hyun and Min-suk were standing there, all beat up and bloody. They looked at each other, breathing hard. Do-hyun seemed to respect Min-suk a bit more now, because he realized the man in front of him was not like some weak wannabe. Min-suk was not all talk, like another person named Shin Ji-woo. Hearing the name, Min-suk's eyes glowed and a hot red aura started boiling around him. It looked kind of scary, honestly. But Do-hyun was not finished. He said he still did not believe that he and Min-suk were the same. Suddenly, a dark and terrible energy exploded out of Do-hyun. It turned into a huge, shadowy beast with glowing red eyes and big, scary teeth. He decided he was going to prove just how awesome the goddess's blessing was for him. Just then, Do-hyun's mind went into flashback mode. In his memory, a younger him was tied to a wooden stake, flames all around. An angelic goddess appeared from the sky in a golden light, radiating super divine and powerful energy. Yeah, that's the same goddess as our man. Do-hyun remembered her blessing, and he felt insane power burning inside him. Suddenly, the door to the office exploded open. The deputy mayor ran into the room, looking freaked out by the destroyed office. He asked if the mayor was all right, and what happened to his clothes and the office. Do-hyun tried to act all chill, and said the discussion just got a bit too heated, sorry about the mess. But then his mood changed. He turned cold and scary, asking why Kim had come in, even though he had told everyone to stay away. Kim started shaking and sweating. He stammered that there was just a loud crash, and he got worried. Do-hyun stared at him in a way that said, "Dude, you are in big trouble now." Meanwhile, on the floor, Min-suk was kneeling, looking rough. Do-hyun was still questioning him, asking what the fuck our protagonist meant by kneeling. Our boy stated that there must be some misunderstanding between them. When he said they were kind of the same, that doesn't mean they were equal. He explained that, as a brother blessed by the same goddess, he would follow Baek Do-hyun. Our MC tried too hard to smile and convince that white-balled super zombie. But here's the twist. A bit earlier, in a hotel room, Colonel Dong-ho was talking with Min-suk. When Min-suk told him that he planned to win Do-hyun's favor, Dong-ho was shocked. He asked if Min-suk was really going to kneel for Do-hyun, like he had knelt for Dong-ho before. Min-suk said, "Yup, if that was needed, he would do it." There was no pride if it could threaten his daughter. He said that powerful people liked it when others showed respect that way. He continued to explain that if he could win Do-hyun's favor, he could keep things peaceful and get his own people out of Daejeon safely. He thought that man would like the offer if a possible rival pledged loyalty. Back in the present, Do-hyun leaned close to Min-suk and gave him a look of pure hate. The whole mood turned bloody red. He knew Min-suk was just lying. He guessed that Min-suk planned to win his trust, get protection, and then betray him. He was not buying it and thought he would not fall for such a basic trick. But Min-suk just smiled and admitted that maybe that was true. But he said even if he tried to betray Do-hyun, it would not work. Do-hyun was already much stronger anyway, so what could he do? He said he only cared about keeping his group safe and would never do anything risky for them. He asked to think about whether that sounded like a lie for someone as mighty as Do-hyun, the sole prophet. Hearing those sweet words, Do-hyun was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he started to laugh, showing a giant crazy grin. He thought the more Min-suk talked, the more he liked the guy, even if it was super annoying. In the end, Do-hyun accepted Min-suk, told him his companions would be safe, and said he would even get a special position to help him. The deputy mayor looked super confused now. Do-hyun said the deputy mayor's seat was open now. And dude, right then he decapitated the poor deputy mayor in one crazy move, just pierced his heart off like it was nothing. Bro, what the fuck? That white dude is so crazy and a sociopath. Do-hyun then told our boy there was one catch. To keep his new job and prove himself, Min-suk would have to pass a test. There was a quick flashback to Colonel Dong-ho's warning. He thought Do-hyun was even darker and scarier than anyone could imagine, like a real cult boss, so he suggested him to be careful. Now, Do-hyun smiled down at Min-suk, his face like a real demon for real. He then asked Min-suk if he would accept the test. A couple of hours later, at Daejeon Plaza, and wow, things were out of control. There was a huge crowd of people in the plaza, and everyone was losing their minds. Spotlights shined on a big wooden stake piled high with firewood. All the citizens seemed kind of hypnotized. They started chanting louder and louder together, and bro, it sounded straight up scary. They yelled for an execution, all wild and fanatical. The name on everyone's lips was Shin Ji-woo. He was tied up super tight to that stake, with a blindfold over his eyes. The people screamed that they wanted to destroy him, calling him a demon. The city felt like it was on the edge of something really dark. Meanwhile, near that spot, Colonel Dong-ho stood with his soldiers in an area for VIPs. A waiter came over, trying to offer some wine, but the colonel was not feeling it. He was way too stressed for any party stuff right now. Bro, how the fuck was there a waiter, lol? Then Dami rushed up to the colonel. She was looking really upset. She begged him to tell her where her dad was. Nobody would explain anything, and she guessed something bad had happened. The colonel just looked away, not saying a word, which only made things worse. He told the soldiers to take Dami back, treating her softly but firmly. Dami tried to resist, shouting more questions. The colonel looked super angry and frustrated, but he still didn't say a thing. Dude, everyone knew something was wrong. Back at the plaza, Baek Do-hyun stood high up on a stage. He raised his hand to start the ceremony. He yelled out to all the people that it was time to begin the execution. The crowd cheered like they were at a concert or something, totally hyped and scary at the same time. Suddenly, he signaled for silence. He dropped a bombshell. He told everyone that Shin Ji-woo had tried to escape that morning and, in the process, killed the deputy mayor. The whole crowd lost it, shocked and angry, shouting Ji-woo as the monster. Baek Do-hyun then started crying, super dramatic, almost like an actor in a soap drama. The people begged him not to cry, but just as quickly, he dropped the act and smiled all evil. He told them not to worry, because the goddess had already picked someone new to help punish the demon. Do-hyun then pointed at Min-suk. Min-suk is now using the same suit as Do-hyun and holding a big torch, and he looks like things are about to get real. Then there was a flashback to earlier that day. Do-hyun told Min-suk about the execution ritual. It would happen at 11 o'clock that night. He usually did these things himself, but just this once, he would let Min-suk take Ji-woo's life. Do-hyun said this would prove Min-suk was chosen by the goddess and promised to accept him if he accepted this job. Now, back to the plaza. Min-suk looked determined. He raised the torch and accepted his destiny. The crowd went wild all over again, screaming like fans at a rock show. And now, Colonel Dong-ho also watched this craziness in front of his eyes. He looked terrified and furious. He remembered before this, our boy told him the plan, and of course, any sane person, like the colonel, got angry and yelled, "Killing a person is too much." He went straight to Minsuk, grabbing his arm and trying to drag him out of this mess. But Minsuk stopped him and said there was no way they could just run. As long as Baek Do-hyun ran Daejeon, trying to escape was just too risky. He blamed himself for all the trouble and said he only cared about keeping Damie safe, not the rest of the world. Dang, that's pretty hardcore, if you ask me. Back at the plaza, Minsuk lifted the torch super high and shoved it right into the firewood at Ji-woo's feet. The wood exploded into flames in a second, and soon, the fire was huge and wild. The poor Ji-woo screamed as the fire raged around him. The crowd was totally into it, yelling that they had finally destroyed the demon. Everybody was celebrating, acting like they just won some giant battle. Baek Do-hyun jumped down beside Minsuk and put his hand on his head, like some football coach welcoming a new player. He told everyone that Minsuk would now be his right-hand man. He threw his arms wide, asking everyone to cheer for their new deputy mayor, Ryu Minsuk. The crowd went nuts, yelling Minsuk's name. After the execution, Minsuk was led through a fancy hallway at the expo tower. Guards saluted him, calling him the new deputy mayor. Minsuk walked into a special room, took off his bandana, and dude, plot twist, it was Ji-woo all along. What the fuck? The writer is really playing with my head. He looked totally fine and introduced himself with a big grin. Colonel Dong-ho stared at him, looking like he had just seen a ghost and couldn't believe what happened. There was another flashback. Earlier, Minsuk had talked to Colonel Dong-ho privately. Minsuk said that, for Dami, he would give up everything if he had to, but today, he had a better plan. He told Dong-ho there was no time to explain everything, but tonight he would win Baek Do-hyun's trust and save Ji-woo, all in one crazy move. It turned out that when the fire surrounded the stake, the one getting roasted was our boy. With determination in his eyes, he stated that he would crush anything that tried to harm him or Dami, so getting roasted like this wouldn't be a big deal. He is the only one who could ever manage this stunt. Bro, this was super insane. The next day, at a construction site in Daejeon, things were looking super busy. Workers wearing hard hats and safety vests moved stuff around, building a huge stage. Do-hyun appeared among them, looking perfect in his spotless white suit. Suddenly, Minsuk came to him. Do-hyun called him vice mayor and greeted him, which sounded nice, but you could totally tell there was something weird behind that smile. Minsuk bowed politely and apologized for being a bit late. Do-hyun said he understood, but then grabbed Minsuk's chin, forcing him to look up. He acted all friendly, talking about how crazy last night had been and asking if Minsuk managed to get any sleep. Bro, they were sus as heck. Do-hyun then remembered watching Minsuk execute the demon and said it was super thrilling. But his grip got tighter and started hurting Minsuk's face. He warned him to come on time next time, saying he didn't like dogs that disobeyed their old master. Minsuk struggled, but managed to say yes. Do-hyun finally let go and looked away, inviting Minsuk to have tea with him while they waited for the ceremony to start. He then talked about Minsuk's big inauguration coming up, which was going to be super fancy. Then casually mentioned that Ji-woo's body had burned up perfectly, except for his right arm. Do-hyun always sounded like he knew more than he let on, and that made things creepy. Meanwhile, yesterday, Minsuk and Ji-woo sat on a couch. Our boy's hands were burned and full of burn marks. Ji-woo stared at them, looking like he just couldn't believe it actually happened. He told him that he owed Minsuk big time. If Minsuk hadn't helped, he would already be dead. He thought the rescue plan went pretty well, even though it had to be made up super quick. It was really rough and bloody, even if it worked out in the end. Ji-woo admitted it was really hard to stop himself from attacking Do-hyun in that moment. He confessed that he learned two things. First, he just couldn't kill Baek Do-hyun. Second, he believed that maybe Minsuk could do it instead. Maybe Minsuk was the one who could actually take Do-hyun down. Our MC asked why him, but Ji-woo stayed quiet. Our zombie dad said he had no reason to go after Do-hyun now that he was vice mayor. He made it clear. He saved Ji-woo only because he could. If he couldn't have pulled off the trick, he would have killed him without a second thought. And Minsuk wanted him to remember that he wasn't some hero, just a regular guy with his own motives. But then our boy wanted to know, why did Ji-woo even want to take out Do-hyun? He admitted that Do-hyun was cruel, but also said that man kind of protected Daejeon from bigger threats, such as the zombie armies. Suddenly, Ji-woo got mad. He smashed his ceramic cup, cutting his hand and spilling blood and glass all over the table. He asks if our boy even knew what Do-hyun was really doing. Couldn't he notice why he hadn't seen any regular people out on the streets lately? The streets were empty because all citizens knelt in rows, with their eyes empty. They were being brainwashed, like zombies, just repeating creepy phrases about their goddess, hope, flames, and miracles for Daejeon. Ji-woo knew something was wrong. He figured out that the citizens were basically stuck inside, turned into blank puppets waiting only for Do-hyun to order them around. Ji-woo shook with anger, staring at his bleeding hand. He admitted Do-hyun had protected the city with incredible strength. That was true. He had even thought maybe Do-hyun could be the hero Korea needed. Min-suk listened, and a sad, understanding smile came over his face. Those words reminded him of someone. If you asked who, that must be Colonel Dong-ho. And that guy, now listening to their conversation at the door. Then Ji-woo explained how things started feeling off around Daejeon. The area protected by Do-hyun kept getting bigger, but they barely found any survivors. One day, Ji-woo's team searched near a mountain and found an abandoned warehouse. There, they saw the real truth. The place was packed with lifeless bodies and mindless trapped people. The scariest thing? Baek Do-hyun appeared in his real, monster form. He had a single glowing red eye and a gruesome, evil smile. Do-hyun was eating all those people. Fuck. Do-hyun then moved incredibly fast and killed Ji-woo's entire unit before anyone could fight back. It was a total slaughter, bro. Ji-woo was left traumatized by the horror he saw. Back in reality, Ji-woo pleaded with our dad zombie. He said only Min-suk had any hope of fixing Daejeon now. He was totally desperate. But Min-suk rejected it. He told him to forget he had ever said anything about that stuff, and got up to leave. Yet Ji-woo ran after him, begging. But Min-suk said that if anyone went against Do-hyun inside Daejeon, there was no way he could protect his daughter, Dami. He declared again that he wasn't a hero, just a father, just someone trying to keep his kids safe. Just then, Dami herself showed up in the doorway, carrying some towels and stuff so her dad could wash up. She overheard a little, but pretended she hadn't heard anything. She acted casual and left to let him rest. Min-suk said goodnight, trying to play it cool. While he stood in the hall, Ji-woo came up behind him with one last question. Did Min-suk really believe Do-hyun had nothing to do with him? He gave Min-suk a long, thoughtful look. Didn't Min-suk realize another strange thing? During Do-hyun's big assemblies, all the citizens were coming. But why was there not a single young woman in the crowd? Where were they? With that, finally, our boy decided that he must leave this damned place. Daejeon is no longer safe, and he should run away from here. The next day, the plan began. Now, Min-suk and Do-hyun are chatting in the office. The sound from the headphones stated that the plan escape for Daejeon is confirmed, and on stage one need to be done. With that, our boy uses his strength and goes absolutely savage, decapitating Do-hyun with just one attack. Blood sprayed everywhere. It was intense and kinda terrifying. But let's be honest, this fight was not going to be over that easily. I bet the fight gonna be epic. Meanwhile, at the same time, there was a group of soldiers in black gear from Daejeon, standing super straight, giving a big salute, as a bunch of white vans started driving away. Those vans were the Daejeon Expeditionary Force, but of course without Min-suk, who wasn't there. And thank God, they were actually escaping. They had really made it out. Inside one of the vans, 2 soldiers were riding up front. The dude who was driving looked like he couldn't believe this was happening. He asked if it was really this easy to escape or if they all just got scared for nothing. But then, the other one made it clear that it wasn't luck. He said someone made it easy for them. And of course, he meant our goat Min-suk. Our boy made the soldiers super clear that they should let all of them out of the city. Look at that soldier's face. If leaving this place is so easy, they wouldn't even make a face like that. Sure, it's all thanks to Min-suk, but they need to remember why he does all of it. With all the power, even if they killed themselves, never let Dami get hurt. Or everything's gonna end right there. As long as Dami is alive, Min-suk wouldn't mind even killing himself. Next to the colonel sat Dami. She was staring out the window, looking super sad and worried. The colonel then tried to chat with her. He asked if she was thinking about her dad. Because honestly, who wouldn't be? The girl just looked down, clearly upset. The colonel tried to remind her that her father said he would be back after a quick errand, like it was no big deal. But Dami wasn't so sure. Her eyes were shiny, like she was about to cry. Suddenly, she started remembering something from her past. A time when she saw her dad get really angry. Usually, her father had always lived like a people pleaser and a bit of a pushover. Even when it's not his fault, he would apologize first. But when someone hurt her, her father became 180 degrees different. He looked like he was going to explode, punching some guy by the collar while soldiers tried to pull him away. Dami had never seen her dad like that before. Then she remembered last night. Min-suk had that same face, the one from way back in middle school. This time, he looked even angrier. She held her hands tight on her legs and started to tremble. She decided to stop asking questions and just wanted to know one thing. Would her dad come back safe? She looked at the colonel with so much hope. The colonel looked at her and nodded. How could Min-sok not come back? Especially when his daughter was worrying about him like this. He wanted to cheer her up, so he promised her that her father would be back soon. He even gave her a big, bright grin, trying to make her feel better. But deep down, the colonel feels unsure. After all, that Baek Do-hyun is a crazy monster. He hopes our hero won't lose. But, bro, things were about to get crazy somewhere else. Back to our protagonist, Min-suk was still fighting Do-hyun. Do-hyun looked terrible, bloody, missing his head, but somehow could still fight like a madman. Sure, this guy was not weak at all. Do-hyun wasn't going down easy. Baek started to talk, bleeding all over the place. He said that he, Baek Do-hyun, had trusted Min-suk completely. He glued his head back to his body and wanted to know why our goat father betrayed him. Min-suk just tilted his head, probably thinking that this dude was crazy. Then, bam. Min-suk moved so fast it was like he disappeared. He said from the beginning, he would never be on that bastard side. But Do-hyun blocked him and pitifully said he thought the goddess on Min-suk's side. But nope, he was just some devil incarnation. But don't forget, he has the same strength as our boy, and he couldn't defeat him. Yet somehow, Min-suk smashed Baek with a punch so strong that blood sprayed everywhere and made him fly. That blow made Do-hyun lose half of his body. He was shocked, couldn't believe how strong Min-suk had gotten in such a short time. Last time he could only bend his finger, but now? Why did this bastard become so strong? Then, Do-hyun kept trying to run away. But our boy wasn't done. He chased after him again, thinking that just trying to escape wouldn't fix anything now. That bastard Do-hyun would chase them down to the very end. Even Dami. So there's only one option. He will finish that monster here. Our hero stood there, ready to hit again, but stopped for a second. Do-hyun looked so pathetic on the ground and started to scream for Min-suk to wait. Then, out of nowhere, two soldiers in black gear burst into the room with their guns out. They shouted at Min-suk, asking what he was doing and if their major was alright. But Do-hyun didn't mess around. He appeared right behind them, grabbed their heads, and ate them like it was nothing. Blood went everywhere. Dark energy started swirling all around him. Suddenly, our boy got hit by a big hand, sending him crashing into the wall. He couldn't believe it. What the hell is happening right now? There, Do-hyun wasn't done yet. He got back up, and his eyes started glowing red. He looked pissed off, bro. Then he started to change. His muscles grew huge, his shirt ripped apart, and he just looked like a total monster. He called the whole thing ridiculous. He said he picked up trash and made it better, and now Min-suk dared to try to kill him? Do-hyun's face twisted into something not human at all. His teeth turned sharp, and the whole room started to fill up with darkness. He told our goat father to go ahead and try. One of Baek's eyes glowed super bright, looking straight into Min-suk's soul. He started to roar, stating he would show our boy how deeply the goddess adores him, and he would make it totally clear. This was Mayor Baek Do-hyun, and he was about to show his real power. Power of the blessing, activate. Suddenly, there was a flashback. People were kneeling on the floor of a creepy cult temple, and an old guy with a crazy look on his face was just laughing like a supervillain. He told everyone to follow him and worship him. He would save them all. But, did anyone really believe that? Because, yikes, it looked super sketchy. Then, the world changed in an instant. Do-hyun stood at his window, looking super confused, while outside total chaos was breaking out. Zombies and crazy infected people were attacking each other. It was absolutely nuts. Down on the street, a bunch of believers were freaking out and banging on the door. They were yelling his name, begging Baek Do-hyun to help. The believers wanted to know if this was the end, just like he had prophesied. They were basically saying, hey, if this really is the destruction he promised, he better do something about it. Inside a so-called safe room, 3 cultists were losing their minds. They grabbed axes and started yelling, asking why it was so quiet and if something happened to him. They finally just smashed the door open and rushed inside, desperate for help. But when they saw Do-hyun, he was just kneeling in front of an open safe, stuffing bags full of cash. Bro was literally packing up the money while everyone outside was dying. The cultists were shocked and asked what he was doing. Do-hyun just pushed past them, holding the money bag tight, and told them to move. Wow, the dude didn't even try to hide what he was really about. The cultist got so mad and caught him, then tied him up to a stake. Do-hyun screamed for help as fire swallowed him up. The crowd watched as one voice shouted they needed to calm the goddess's anger. Do-hyun begged for someone to save him, but nobody did. The flames just kept getting higher and higher. That was nightmare fuel for real. Then, something wild happened. The goddess comes to him and gives him the power. Now Do-hyun somehow stood in the burning stake, talking to the crowd. He told everyone that he was the only one allowed to stand apart, the one the goddess loved so much that anything could happen. He said he was the agent of the goddess. His face looked totally possessed, like a demon in the firelight. Cut to the present day, and Do-hyun was standing there, now a huge monster. Then, the real fight started. He crouched down, his muscles popping out everywhere. He then leapt up and smashed down toward our boy so hard that it made the ground explode. Min-suk got smashed right into the floor, and blood went everywhere. His white suit was ripped up and bloody. Oof, that had to hurt. Do-hyun kept talking like he was the hero. It's disappointing that Min-suk is this weak. He started yelling that he now understands why the goddess would send a demon like Min-suk to him. He glowed with crazy red energy. He said he was going to be the apostle who punishes those who defile her blessing and anyone close to him, including even Min-suk's kid. He said he was going to torment them so badly they would beg for death. Yeah bro, including Dami, is that bastard huge mess. Min-suk won't ever let him be. Do-hyun then jumped, looked like a nightmare monster, all muscle and teeth. He roared that he would bring judgment. Suddenly our boy smiled and said it was time. Suddenly a bright light shone in front of Do-hyun. It was Ji-woo doing it. Do-hyun somehow lost his power, not understanding what was going on. Then, our boy explained about shadow vision. When people's bones and nerves outlined in black and white, like some X-ray vision, because of nerve damage, either from birth or from something that happened later, this kind of sight only showed moving shapes and outlines. It was kind of messed up. Their sensory nerves are far sharper than normal, but their visual recovery is several times slower. Hearing those, Do-hyun becomes so angry and yells to just come to him and fight. Do not use this stupid trick. But our boy voice keep echoing. Explained if there was a strong light or loud noise, it could shock the brain. Suddenly, the world was shaking in Do-hyun's eyes. He grabbed his chest, freaking out. Min-suk continued. Sometimes, it could even cause a seizure, especially for someone with crazy nerve powers. So, for a monster like Do-hyun, this was total pain. So, that's why he always uses something to cover his eyes. Do-hyun realized it now. He wondered if all his nerves were going wild because he unleashed his blessing mode, a state where every sense surpasses the human realm. Blood and sweat poured down his face. Yeah, Min-suk had planned all of it. That bastard pretended to fight only with strength first, making him awaken his monster body. Then, Min-suk acted like he was losing, just to drag him in closer. This must be it. Every single move was all part of that bastard plan. He was so angry that he shouted for our boy to just die. Min-suk stood in the glowing light, all beat up but looking tough. He tried to say that yeah, the power Do-hyun got was superior than him. It's clear that the goddess loves him too deeply. But he just wants to make Do-hyun know the power people have when they want to protect someone is even stronger than the power he gets as a gift. Yeah, no matter how strong other people were, Min-suk stood above all of them. Why? Because he got the most insane and OP power. Min-suk's blessing was the power of a dad,